Chapter 45-56. However, it was a matter of course for Lin Yi. After all, he had obtained a large jar of star ink milk from the great fire lion and the big spider. It would be a waste not to use it. Moreover, the great fire lion had said that the star ink milk would have the greatest effect when used for bathing. Now was the time to use it. After pouring the star ink milk all over the pit, Lin Yi jumped in without saying anything. However, there was another plop. Lin Yi couldn't help but stare at the jubilant spirit bird next to him. He didn't expect this guy to be so cunning. It actually jumped in with a satisfied look. Fortunately, the pit that Lin Yi made was not small. Otherwise, it really couldn't fit one person and one bird. Since the spirit bird wanted to join in the fun, Lin Yi didn't mind at all. Although the star ink milk didn't have a heaven-defying effect on a spirit beast like it, it was not a bad thing after all. Moreover, it wouldn't affect Lin Yi himself. After instructing the spirit bird, Lin Yi immediately sank his chi into his dantian and began to condense his nascent soul. However, the first step to condense his nascent soul was not to take the golden elixir, but to crush the core golden elixir in his dantian. As the name suggested, the golden elixir in the dantian was the source of power for all golden elixir stage masters. No matter what method was used, crushing the golden elixir was an extremely crazy and dangerous thing. If it was light, one would become disabled. If it was heavy, one would die directly. This was not a joke. Although condensing the nascent soul was a process of destruction and reconstruction for other golden elixir stage masters, even those with extraordinary talent, they would never dare to take such a risk. At most, they would slowly reshape their golden elixir until it finally condensed into a nascent soul. After thousands of years of experiments, this was proven to be the most stable and reliable way to condense a nascent soul. However, Lin Yi obviously didn't intend to follow the crowd. Although this method was stable, the price of pursuing stability was the sacrifice of potential. In this case, even with the help of the star ink milk, it was impossible to become the strongest nascent soul stage master. If he really wanted to stand out, he could only carry out the 4 words destruction and reconstruction to the end. The risk of shattering one's own gold core was very high. It could be said that there was a slim chance of survival. If he didn't have so much astral ink milk, Lin Yi would never gamble with his life. But it was different now. This much astral ink milk was enough to ensure that he would remain safe and sound even after breaking his nascent core. Even if it couldn't last for a long time, if everything went smoothly, it should be able to last until he finally condensed his strongest nascent soul. That being said, it was foreseeable that everything would not go smoothly in the process. If there was an accident, no amount of astral ink milk would be able to save his life. Lin Yi rarely took risks, but this time, in order to become the strongest nascent soul, he had no choice but to take this risk. After being provoked by the West Mountain Old Sect Master and the Spirit Beast clan, if Lin Yi didn't take such a risk, then even if he became a nascent soul, he wouldn't be able to fight back. So, he had to fight with his life on the line. He mobilized the vital energy in his body to gather in his dantian and fiercely attacked his gold core, which was the source of vital energy. It was actually not difficult for ordinary gold core experts to break their own gold core. Void core experts only needed to think about it, and even solid core experts only needed to use a little bit of vital energy. However, Lin Yi was different. He had a perfect gold core. With the blessing of the power of the stars, the toughness of a perfect gold core could be said to be unprecedented. If Lin Yi wanted to break his own gold core, he had to hit himself with all his strength. This feeling was no less than 1,000 wild sand explosive fist in one's dantian. If one's willpower was slightly lacking, perhaps they would have fainted from the pain. Puff! Lin Yi groaned and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the perfect gold core in his dantian had collapsed. The movement in his body was so big that even the ghostly thing, a bystander, was shocked. It had seen many ruthless people, but it was the first time it had seen someone like Lin Yi who was so ruthless to himself. Men really have to be ruthless to themselves. You're awesome. The ghostly thing could not help but be speechless. Senior, you flatter me. It's not too bad. Lin Yi forced a smile. It was really hard for him to still be in the mood to answer at this juncture. As he spoke, Linny once again forcibly mobilized his pure chi, completely shattering the perfect jindan that was already falling apart. At the same time, the star ink milk that was soaking outside seeped into his body through every pore, following his meridians all the way to his dantian. Originally, because the perfect gold core had been shattered, Lin Yi's dantian had also been seriously injured and was on the verge of destruction. The dantian was the foundation of every practitioner. Once the dantian was destroyed, even gods would not be able to save him. Even if he was lucky enough to keep his life, he would no longer be able to mobilize any vital energy and would become a complete cripple. But fortunately, there was the star ink milk. At this moment, the star ink milk that had entered his dantian had just stabilized the dantian that was on the verge of destruction. At the same time, it had also created a unique environment, an excellent environment to condense the strongest nascent soul. At this moment, Linny did not feel the pain brought by the shattering of the gold core. Instead, he had entered a mysterious and wonderful realm. That kind of feeling was as if his body had suddenly become not his own, but had become a bystander with the cold eyes of a bystander. Everything in his body had become clear, and the places that were not so clear before had become clear at a glance because of the star ink milk. The empty realm? Ling Yi's heart was slightly moved. This was a mysterious realm that only existed in legends. He did not expect that he would actually encounter it today. Cultivation was the cultivation of the heart, and it was a process of gradually understanding the principles of the grand Tao of the world. During this process, all cultivators were gradually reacquainting themselves, and introspection was one of the necessary stages. Only by introspection would one be able to understand every single change in one's body like the palm of one's hand, and only then would one be able to truly bring forth one's strongest potential. However, introspection could only be regarded as a basic realm of self-knowledge. One could clearly see every drop of the body. However, it was very difficult to see how to link the body into a whole, and how to circulate it freely. If one wanted to achieve this, one could only surpass the realm of introspection and reach the legendary state of emptiness. Legend had it that any practitioner who had reached the empty realm could finally display 100% of their strongest potential and become a legendary master. Laney did not care much about this saying, but one thing was certain. The empty realm was indeed something that could only be encountered by chance. It was not something that could be achieved just because one wanted to. Chapter 4557. Moreover, the probability was very small. If it was analyzed as a small probability event in the secular world, this kind of thing was equivalent to not existing for ordinary people, and they would not have the chance to encounter it in their lifetime. This was really something that could only be encountered by chance. It was not something that could be encountered by cultivating in seclusion or taking elixirs. If one wanted to reach the empty state, he could only rely on one thing, and that was luck. For Linny, this was purely an unexpected surprise. Linny could not help but secretly guess that this might be related to bathing in the star ink milk. After all, the magical effect of the star ink milk was only known in the world, and it was not even clear. Previously, no one had associated it with the empty state, but it did not mean that there was really no connection between the two. However, Linny did not have much time to be surprised at the moment. The effect of the star ink milk could not last for too long. If he could not successfully condense the nascent soul before its effect faded, the consequences would be unimaginable. The time had come. Linny immediately took a gathering nascent soul golden pill without hesitation. The elixir melted in his mouth, like a refreshing spring flowing from head to toe. There was almost no interval in the middle. The medicinal effect of the gathering nascent soul golden pill immediately took effect. Laney could clearly feel the genuine qi and profound qi in his body slowly condensing, flowing along the major meridians, all the way to the dantian. Breaking the golden pill was the first step, gathering the profound qi was the second step, and then the most important third step was condensing the nascent soul. Condensing the nascent soul, and condensing the golden pill, did not seem to have much difference. The only difference was that the former only needed to break through to the nascent soul stage, while the latter only needed to break through to the gold core stage. But when he really reached this step, Lenny knew that the two were fundamentally different. In the end, condensing the golden pill only needed to follow the process. There was not much technical content to speak of. It was just condensing the shape of a golden pill. Even a perfect golden pill was not so complicated. But nascent soul was different, even if everything else was disregarded. It was also extremely difficult to condense a complete nascent soul with profound chi. The golden core was still just a round bead with simple lines. But the nascent soul was a complete human shape. The process of condensing the nascent soul was tantamount to creating a brand new self in the dantian. From head to toe, every part of the body could not be missing. If any part was missing, it would greatly affect the strength of the body in the future. Simply put, the more complete and exquisite the nascent soul condensed when breaking through to the nascent soul stage, the stronger the nascent soul expert would be. On the other hand, if the nascent soul was incomplete, it meant that the nascent soul expert would be at the bottom. Not only would it be difficult for him to break through, but he would also be at the bottom of the pack even among experts of the same level. In order to achieve this, two conditions must be met at the same time. First, it was the perfect environment to condense a nascent soul. Otherwise, if there was even the slightest flaw in such an exquisite work, it would ultimately lead to failure. And the star ink milk just happened to give Lin Yi this unique environment. At the same time, it also gave him a relatively ample amount of time. This was also the origin of the saying that the star ink milk could create the strongest nascent soul. However, this was only an objective external condition. In this world, there was never anything that was absolutely certain. Even taking panacea and panacea might not necessarily work. The star ink milk naturally couldn't guarantee the emergence of the strongest nascent soul stage expert. If one wanted to become the strongest nascent soul, the star ink milk could at most be regarded as an admission ticket. The more critical condition was the second condition, and that was a deep understanding of oneself. As a person from the secular world, Lin Yi naturally had a lot of advantages in this aspect compared to the native cultivators of the Heaven Stage Island. But even so, he still did not have much confidence, because even the modern technology of the secular world had never been able to really see through the human body. Other cultivators could understand more by simply looking inside themselves. Lin Yi's advantage was at most that he had a more scientific concept. However, what Lin Yi did not expect was that he suddenly entered the state of emptiness. Unexpectedly, he suddenly entered the state of emptiness, and all the things that were unclear before suddenly became clear. If he was only 10% or 20% sure about the strongest yuanying before, then now after entering the state of emptiness, this certainty had increased to at least 60% or 70%. Although it was not 100%, to be able to have 60 or 70% confidence in becoming the strongest nascent soul was already very exaggerated and outrageous in itself. No one would believe it if it was spread out. Even those top experts who had experienced it would not believe it, because this kind of thing was simply unimaginable. In their understanding, the strongest nascent soul had always been blessed with luck. Apart from that, everything else, including the star ink milk, could only be auxiliary. At this moment, Lin Yi completely entered a state of selflessness. All of his mind was immersed in his dantian. He used the constantly gathered profound qi to form the nascent soul little by little. At first, it was only a rough outline, but as time passed, this outline slowly became clear. From head to torso to limbs, it gradually took shape. However, when the nascent soul was about to take shape, the molding process stopped abruptly. Lin Yi slightly frowned. Not enough profound qi. The biggest function of the gathering soul golden elixir was to draw out the profound qi hidden in the human body. At the same time, it could also provide profound qi. Under normal circumstances, only one gathering soul golden elixir was enough to condense the nascent soul. Either it succeeded or it failed. There was no third possibility. It was really unprecedented for Lin Yi to suddenly find that he did not have enough profound qi in the middle of molding the nascent soul. There was no other reason. Even if it was a superior nascent soul, it would at most be able to mold some basic organs. However, Lenny not only had all the organs big and small, but even the blood vessels and meridians could not be missing. All of these were condensed by profound qi, so it was natural that he did not have enough profound qi. Without any hesitation, Lenny hurriedly took the second gathering soul golden elixir. His profound qi once again endlessly replenished his dantian, and Lenny once again entered a state of selflessness. The great undertaking of condensing the nascent soul had only just begun. The outline of the nascent soul was relatively easy, but what came after was the truly difficult work. Time passed bit by bit. Lin-Yi, who was immersed in the state of selflessness, did not realize how much time had passed. He was not even aware of the changes that had occurred in his body. From beginning to end, all of his attention was focused on condensing the nascent soul. After all, this was the foundation. While Lenny was concentrating on condensing the nascent soul, the spirit bird next to him was not idle. It continuously showered its entire body with the star ink milk, not even letting go of a single feather. It was unknown if this made it feel comfortable, or if it had some other effect. But in any case, it was never tired. Chapter 45-58. How did your feathers change? Lin Yi's voice came from the side, and his eyes flashed with a never-before-seen charm. If one looked closely, they'd find that he'd changed from head to toe, as if he'd been reborn. His calm and collected temperament had changed a little, becoming extraordinary. There was no doubt that Lin Yi was now a real early-stage nascent soul master. After consuming 2 gathering nascent golden pills and a pool of star ink milk, he finally achieved the strongest nascent soul. Before this, Lin Yi was confident that he could deal with 99% of the late-stage nascent soul masters with his peak gold core strength. Now that he was in the early-stage nascent soul, he could even deal with the peak nascent soul. If it was someone else, even if they achieved the strongest nascent soul, they would only be the strongest of the same level. It was unheard of for an early-stage nascent soul to deal with a peak nascent soul. It was completely a fantasy. However, it had become a reality for Lin Yi. Feeling the earth-shattering changes in his body, Lin Yi did not forget to observe the changes of the spirit bird. During the 10 days when he was condensing his nascent soul, the spirit bird was only soaking in the star ink milk. As a result, it suddenly soared from the late-stage gold core to the peak gold core. This scene was incredible even for Lin Yi. It was not that he had never seen someone who advanced quickly. He himself was a freak, but he had never seen or heard of someone who advanced quickly like the spirit bird. It was already very exaggerated for it to advance from the late-stage gold core to the late-stage gold core in 3 months. Now it only took 10 days for it to advance from the late-stage gold core to the peak gold core. This kind of thing was simply subversive. Chirp, 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 chirp. The spirit bird excitedly shook its feathers at Lin Yi. Compared to the original color, the feathers were not only brighter, but also a lot longer. However, what made Lin Yi helpless was that this guy splashed his head with the star ink milk. There is one more gathering nascent golden pill. Do you want to try it? Lin Yi suddenly said on a whim. He took out the last gathering nascent golden pill and handed it to the spirit bird. Chirp, chirp. The spirit bird's eyes lit up and immediately swallowed it. Then it began to flutter in the star ink milk. Hee. You sure aren't being polite with me. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. Although it was a whim, and this gathering nascent soul golden pill was enough to cause a bunch of experts to fight for it. But now it was eaten by a spiritual bird. It was really like a child's play. However, he didn't feel that it was a pity. Anyway, he still had a whole nascent ginseng, and the gathering nascent soul golden pill could be refined at any time. Moreover, this spiritual bird was Huang Xiaotao's spiritual pet, which was also his spiritual pet. Seeing the spirit bird fluttering its wings, unable to extricate itself, Lin Yi smiled and walked out of the pit. He sat down cross-legged on the side. He had just entered the early nascent soul stage. Not only did he need to stabilize his cultivation, he also needed to carefully study the martial skills that he had learned. If he couldn't improve them to the appropriate level, then it wouldn't be easy for him to fight with others in the future. For example, frenzied flame 1000 bursts fist, frenzied flame 8 trigrams palm, frenzied flame 1000 kicks, etc., as well as super physical skills and extreme physical skills. These were all things that Lenny needed to study. In particular, he had to find a way to combine the latter two with other martial skills to create an enhanced version of the Super Butterfly Subtle Steps and Extreme Butterfly Subtle Steps. This would be a powerful means to fight against enemies in the future. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days passed. Lenny was in the middle of his research. Suddenly, there was an excited cry of the spirit bird next to him. Then he saw it jump out of the star ink milk. The feeling it gave off was completely different from before, and there was a trace of illusory feeling. This was a sign that would only appear when the flying spirit beast reached a certain level. You're already in the nascent soul stage? Lenny was suddenly stunned, and he couldn't help but grin speechlessly. He really thought that he had leveled up fast enough. However, compared with this spirit bird, it was like a damn snail. How could this damn bird level up so fast? Chirp, 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 chirp. The spirit bird nodded at Lenny repeatedly, and its newly increased nascent soul aura was fully revealed. Hee hee, you don't have to be surprised. It's not only your luck to be able to come to this place, but it's also a great luck for it. It's reasonable for it to be able to have this day. The ghost thing interrupted with a smile. That's within reason? Senior, are you trying to tell me that all spirit beasts level up like this? Lenny was speechless. If other spirit beasts leveled up at such a terrifying speed, the spirit beast clan would have been invincible a long time ago. That's not it. There's a reason why this spirit bird can level up so quickly. After all, this place is rich in spiritual energy, which is rare in the world. Although there's the pressure of the 5 elements murderous aura, most of it is directed at you. The one that is shared with this guy is negligible. It just picks up the remaining non-aggressive spiritual energy and absorbs it, and it can level up quickly. The ghost thing explained. It's that simple? Lenny raised his eyebrows. He still felt that it was unbelievable. After all, this was too exaggerated. How complicated do you think it is? Don't forget that there's still so much star ink milk, and the gathering nascent soul golden pill that you gave it. In addition, this spirit bird's aptitude isn't that great. It's not strange at all for it to reach the nascent soul stage. The ghost thing didn't seem to mind at all. Isn't it strange that its aptitude isn't good? Lenny was stunned when he heard this. From the ghost's words, it sounded like the aptitude of the spirit beast was able to level up quickly. What kind of strange argument was this? That's right. If it was any other spirit beast here, especially a spirit beast with a better aptitude, even with this unique environment, it might not be able to level up by a few levels. This is because we spirit beasts are different from you humans. You human cultivators level up faster with better aptitude, but we spirit beasts are the exact opposite. The aptitude of the spirit beast race is higher, so it would need more resources to level up. Naturally, it would take longer for them to level up. As for the spirit bird, its aptitude can only be considered to be below average. Naturally, it would level up much faster. The ghost thing explained with a smile. So that's how it is. This is the first time I've heard of it. Lenny suddenly understood. The better the aptitude of the spirit beast, the slower it would level up. But there was no doubt that it was powerful. This was indeed different from human cultivators. When the spirit bird gradually calmed down from the joy of leveling up to the nascent soul stage, Lenny immediately jumped on its back and told it to go to the upper level of the 5 poisonous swamp to check on the situation. Now it had been a full 20 days. Lenny wanted to know if the 2 people were still stationed there, or if the West Mountain Elder had finally given up. After all, if they wanted to return to the North Island before the deadline, it would really be too late if they didn't leave now. Floating Astronomy are 752. Chapter 4559. Originally, with the ghostly thing's divine sense, Lenny did not even need to go to the surface of the 5 poisoned swamp. He could just stay at the bottom and let the ghostly thing scan him. However, the 5 poisoned swamp's divine sense was too powerful. Ordinary people would be completely isolated, And even the ghostly thing would have to spend a lot of effort to go to the surface of the swamp first. FO. Unlike last time, Lin Yi and the spirit bird were both at the nascent soul stage. This time, it was much easier to reach the surface of the swamp. The ghostly thing connected their divine senses to each other, allowing Lin Yi to clearly perceive everything outside. As expected, there were still 2 people standing guard on a tree branch not far from the 5-poisoned swamp. However, it was not the bald man and the black-faced man from last time. Instead, it was 2 other people. After clearly observing the appearance of the 2 people through the ghostly thing's divine sense, Lin Yi was stunned. This time it was 2 familiar faces. Brother Yanji, those 2 bastards are too infuriating. There are still 10 days before they change shifts. But in the end, they slipped away so early and forced the 2 of us to take the blame. Originally, it was already bad enough that we had to stay here for 2 months. Now we have to stay here for another 10 days. This is really infuriating. One of them said angrily. Forget it, old Guan. We have to lower our heads when we are under someone else's eaves. Who asked us to be new to the Dragon Boat Escort Agency? We are not as well established as them. It is inevitable that we will suffer some losses. Just bear with it for now. The other person said with a gloomy face. Sigh. Thinking back to the time when we were at the Equal Heaven Escort Agency, the 2 of them were nothing in front of us. If they dared to give me face like this, I will slap them to death. Humph. If it wasn't for this unlucky Ling Yi, we wouldn't have fallen to such a state today. With no other choice, we could only rely on the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, letting those snobbish bastards ride on our necks and shit on our necks. Therefore, this job is perfect for me. I want to take a good look at the place where Ling Yi's corpse will be destroyed, and I can vent my anger. That's right. It's good that this guy died. With us brothers guarding here, even if he didn't die, we can let old master come and deal with him. Once the jade tablet is broken, he can come at any time. Haha. At that time, we will have made a great contribution. Contribution, my ass. Do you know what kind of place this is? This was the 5-poison swamp. Even deities would have to report to the king of hell if they jumped in. How many lives did Ling Yi have? How could he possibly survive after jumping in? This 5-poison swamp was opened by his family? Ha 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 ha. The 2 people who were talking were actually old acquaintances that Lin Yi had known since he came to the South Continent. They were old acquaintances who had conflicts with each other, Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan. After committing such a shameless act of treachery, their reputations were completely ruined. Logically speaking, it would be difficult for them to continue working in the escort agency business. However, what Lin Yi didn't expect was that they actually turned around and joined the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. This Dragon Boat Escort Agency really didn't take the usual path. They would accept any kind of trash. But thinking about it, they already had an evil cultivator in charge, so they didn't need more trash. Lin Yi clenched his fists, and he wanted to go up and kill these 2 bastards. However, when he thought of the sensing jade token in their hands, he immediately retracted his killing intent. As the 2 said just now, once the jade token was broken, they would come at any time. If the West Mountain Old Sect was really attracted, it would not be a good thing for Lin Yi. With Lin Yi's current strength in the early Yuanying stage, although he wouldn't be as embarrassed as before when facing the West Mountain Old Sect. But with his current strength, it was obviously too whimsical to face a giant evil cultivator in the opening stage. The final result could only be to escape into the 5-poison swamp as before. However, in that case, the West Mountain Old Sect would personally guard the 5-poison swamp and would never give him a chance to escape again. What's more, Lin Yi had only just advanced to the early Yuanying stage, and his strength had not even been consolidated yet. At this time, it was absolutely stupid to go against the West Mountain Old Sect. After thinking about it, Lin Yi returned to the space below. There were still 4 words, the future was long. Lin Yi stood on the high platform again. Because his strength had been qualitatively improved compared to before, the aftermath of the 5 elements murderous qi had no effect on him at all. Only when he was in direct contact with the 5 elements murderous qi, the effect was relatively obvious. With the forcible tempering of the 5 elements murderous qi, Linny soon completely stabilized his strength. However, even so, this kind of day did not last for a few days, because Linny found that the tempering effect of the 5 elements murderous chi was becoming less and less obvious, and the speed of his strength improvement was far less amazing than at the beginning. Linny carefully observed the swamp above his head. Although he had the opportunity to encounter the 5 elements murderous chi standing on the high platform, the density was far less dense than in the middle of the swamp. The probability of encountering it was not very high. It often took more than half an hour to encounter it, and the key was that the strength of the 5 elements murderous chi at the bottom of the swamp was much weaker than that of the 5 elements murderous chi in the middle. The gap between the two could even reach more than 100 times. If he could stand in the middle of the swamp and cultivate, Linny believed that the effect of his cultivation would be as amazing as at the beginning. Unfortunately, this was not realistic. If he wanted to stand in the middle of the swamp, he could only let the spirit bird carry him up. However, in that case, he would have to use his true chi to protect the spirit bird, otherwise, the spirit bird would definitely die. With Lin Yi's current strength, it was not a problem for him to protect the spirit bird. However, it was pure nonsense to say that he could still protect the spirit bird while cultivating. If he really reached the middle of the swamp, even if he went all out, he might not be able to survive for a moment, not to mention that he would have to sacrifice another spirit bird. After pondering for a moment, Linny finally dispelled the idea of entering the middle of the swamp to cultivate. It was too dangerous to do so, and he could only wait until his strength had increased in the future. As for what to do next, Linny had two choices at the moment. One was to continue to use the 5 elements murderous chi to cultivate on the high platform. Although the effect was not as exaggerated as before, it was still much better than Lin Yi's simple self-cultivation. However, in retrospect, since he entered the underground space, he had been in a state of extreme hard work. His strength had also jumped from the peak of the middle stage of the Gold Core realm to the early stage of the nascent Soul realm. Now that his strength had been stabilized, it was not impossible to continue to cultivate. He believed that it would not take too long for him to advance to the next level, but it was not enough to relax. In the long run, it might not be a good thing. Chapter 4560. He wanted to take this opportunity to wander around in this mysterious and vast space. This place was a perfect treasure trove for him. If he walked around, it was very likely that he would come across some unexpected surprises. However, as he was worried at the beginning, this place may have surprises, but it was more likely that there would only be surprises and no surprises. If he really encountered an unpredictable danger, Linny may not be able to cope with it with his early nascent soul stage strength. After all, if there really was something in this place, no matter how he thought about it, its strength was unlikely to be worse than the West Mountain Old Master. Senior, I plan to look around this place for a while. What do you think? Linny asked the ghost. This wasn't just his problem, and if he were to do things his own way and cause trouble, the ghost would be dragged into it as well. He wouldn't be able to live with that. What's more, in this place, the ghostly thing's perception of unpredictable danger was far stronger than Lin Yi's own. Only with its full help could Lin Yi have the confidence to walk around. Otherwise, it was equivalent to a blind man entering the mountain, no different from courting death. Hee, I know you can't stay here for long. It's really boring to blindly cultivate here. Going too far is as bad as falling short, and it would be a waste of time. It's good to explore a little here. To be honest, I'm really quite interested in this place. The ghostly thing readily agreed. Senior, you can't be thinking of looking for that flood dragon, right? Linny couldn't help but laugh. Although he speculated that the previous eyewitness reports were mostly wrong about the 5 elements of killing intent, this was only speculation after all. After all, there was still a possibility that it existed. The world was so big that nothing was too strange. Things that were previously thought to be impossible often happened in the end. Linny had seen this kind of example many times. Jia, if there really is a flood dragon here, then it's not a good thing for you and me. You better pray that you don't encounter it, otherwise you'll become food for others. The ghostly thing curled its lips. It can't be, after all, it's a branch of the same race as Senior. It can't be that it doesn't recognize its own kin, right? Lenny couldn't help but shrink his neck. Branch of the same race? The ghostly thing suddenly laughed and said disapprovingly, "You humans are completely the same race. Didn't they still kill each other? Besides, we spirit beasts adhere to the principle of being more powerful than you humans. If I came here in my peak condition, worm dragons and whatnot would be considered my kind. But in my current state, even if I'm from the same clan, I'll only be treated as food. Well, I hope I'm not that unlucky." Lenny smiled bitterly. However, he still called out to the spirit bird and walked towards the unknown area in front of him. At this moment, he was thinking that if he really encountered some terrifying existence, then he could only quickly escape from the 5-poison swamp regardless of the cost. Even if he was chased by the West Mountain Old Sect, it was still better than directly becoming the rations of the spirit beasts. Don't worry. You don't have to worry even if you really encounter that flood dragon. No matter what, I'm still the former Azure Dragon Elder. I don't dare to say much about other things, but at least you can choose whether you want it steamed or braised. I'm sure you'll give me face." The ghostly thing teased. "You dragons also know how to cook? You're really not simple." Lenny rolled his eyes speechlessly. Carefully guarding against everything in front of him, he began to explore this vast and mysterious underground space for the first time. However, although he said so, Lin Yi's heart was not as nervous as he appeared to be. After all, with the ghostly thing and the jade pendant as a double warning guarantee, no matter what happened, there would always be a little time to react. Moreover, now that the spirit bird's strength had greatly increased, its speed was more than 10 times faster. Although its other talents and potential were not high, the spirit bird's speed was among the top of the flying spirit beasts, absolutely not to be underestimated. Unless it was like the West Mountain Old Sect who locked onto it with their divine sense and directly descended, it was really unlikely that an ordinary existence could catch up to it. With such layers of protection, Lin Yi's heart could be said to be nervous and confident. One man and one bird gradually explored in this mysterious and vast space. However, after walking for a whole 2 days, from beginning to end, they did not encounter any living creatures at all. Not to mention terrifying existences like the flood dragon, they did not even see a single insect. The richness of the spiritual energy in this space was rare in the world. If it was any other place, it would be a gathering of spirit beasts and heavenly treasures could be seen everywhere. However, because of the 5-poison swamp, this place unexpectedly became a dead land. There were no spirit beasts, no wild beasts, not even a plant. After exploring for a whole 2 days, Lenny saw the same scene from beginning to end. Other than the towering stone pillars and high platforms everywhere, this place was simply an uninhabited desert. It was empty and there was nothing. Faced with this result, Lenny could not help but sigh in relief, but he could not help but feel a little disappointed. Although he was not a greedy person, this place was, after all, a treasure land made in heaven for him. Originally, he more or less thought that there would be some unexpected gains, otherwise, he would not have taken the risk to explore. But looking at the current situation, there was no gain at all. At most, he could only comfort himself that there was no danger. Since it was clearly an uninhabited desert, should he continue to explore? Lenny couldn't help but hesitate. He didn't want to do something that was obviously a waste of time. But he couldn't just give up like this. Although he had seen the same wasteland for the past 2 days, who knew if the other places were the same? What if it wasn't? I will explore for another day. If it is still like this, then forget it. It is better to save time and cultivate. Lenny finally made up his mind. If he did not see any changes after 3 days, then there was no point in continuing to explore. Even if there was really a hidden opportunity here, it could only be said that fate was not in his hands. Nothing could be forced, and there was nothing he could do about it. After saying that, Lenny jumped onto the back of the spirit bird. For the past 2 days, he had been walking on the ground out of caution, but now he had a general idea of this space. Moreover, he only planned to explore for 1 more day. Lenny did not intend to dawdle on the ground anymore. With the spirit bird's speed in the air, the area that they could explore in one day was hundreds or thousands of times more than before. If there was really something in this space, Lenny believed that one day was enough. Chapter 4561. Of course, even so, the speed of the spirit bird was not that slow. After all, even if it only used 10% of its speed, it was already much faster than when it went all out. In less than half an hour, the human and the bird had explored a much larger area than the previous 2 days combined. Stop, there seems to be something in front, the ghost thing suddenly said. Really? Lenny was shocked and hurriedly stopped the spirit bird. He was nervous and excited. After being silent and bored for more than 2 days, the fear at the beginning had long been replaced by excitement. Now, he could not wait to encounter something. Of course it's true, but it's too far away now. Even with my divine sense, I can only vaguely sense the existence of something, and I'm sure it's alive. However, I don't know whether it's a spirit beast or a human cultivator. The ghost thing muttered. Ah, why is there a human cultivator in this place? Lenny was stunned. Subconsciously, if there was something in this place, it must be a spirit beast, such as the dragon mentioned before. Why would a human cultivator appear here inexplicably? Hey, what right do you have to say that? Aren't you a living human cultivator yourself? The ghost thing snorted and curled its lips. Although I said that a freak like you who has all 5 elements is hard to find in this world, there's always someone better than you. It's not surprising to see 1 or 2 of you. Well, it's not impossible. Then Senior quickly checked carefully. Is it a spirit beast or a human cultivator? Lenny could only pinch his nose and smile bitterly. That's easy. Let the spirit bird move a little closer, but not too close. It's best if I can detect it, and it can't detect me, the ghost thing instructed. It was very confident in its divine sense. Even if the other party was really a dragon, it could not detect further than him. Therefore, as long as he controlled the distance, it was not difficult to achieve this. Okay. Lenny immediately let the spirit bird move forward, but this time, it was much slower. He was practically inching forward bit by bit. Otherwise, if he inched too much, he might be noticed by the other party. This went on for a while. Lenny and the spirit bird, who weren't too nervous at first, were startled by this strange atmosphere. It didn't matter if it was humans or spirit beasts. They were afraid of the unknown. If it was a dragon in front of them, they wouldn't be so nervous. After a while, the ghostly thing suddenly made a sound of surprise. Lenny's nerves tightened and he quickly asked, "What's wrong?" "It's really strange. Why does this aura feel so familiar?" The ghostly thing muttered in surprise. Familiar? Could it really be that flood dragon? Lenny couldn't help but speculate. In his opinion, the only aura that could make the ghost feel familiar was the flood dragon. Previously, he thought that the so-called eyewitness reports were just people misreading the 5 elements' murderous aura, but he didn't expect it to be true. Not sure. The ghostly thing paused for a moment and said, "This feeling shouldn't be as simple as being of the same race. However, I can be sure that the other party is of the dragon race, but whether it is a flood dragon or not, I don't know." "How can it be?" "Senior, you should be able to see it clearly with your divine sense, right?" Lenny asked curiously. In theory, the things that divine sense could perceive were much clearer than the normal 5 senses, so it was normal that others couldn't see it. However, whether the other party was a flood dragon or not should be known at a glance. "Kid, you think too easily. Previously, when West Mountain Old Sect Master was chasing you, I could block his divine sense. On the other hand, other existences naturally have a way to block my divine sense perception. It's just that the difficulty is extremely high, and it's not that easy." The ghostly thing smiled bitterly. "In that case, Senior, your divine sense has been blocked by it. Could it be that it has already noticed?" Lenny was suddenly shocked. It was not good news to be discovered before he could figure out the other party's details. Not really. However, after reaching a certain level, whether it is you human cultivators or us spirit beasts, we will habitually release a divine sense protective cover. In this way, it can prevent other people's divine sense from peeping. If this divine sense protective cover is high enough, even with my ability, it will be difficult to penetrate it from a long distance. At most, I can only sense the general aura, but it is difficult to know the specific situation inside unless I directly break the other party's divine sense protective cover. However, this will alert the enemy. The ghostly thing gave Linny some common sense. So that's how it is. Then what should we do now? Linny asked. Listening to the ghostly thing's tone, he knew that the other party was definitely not a simple character. Maybe it was a top-level spirit beast. Provoking such an existence in this place was definitely asking for trouble. It was very likely that he would not even be able to escape. Kid, if you have the courage, then continue forward. I am quite interested in this guy, but I have to say the ugly words first. Even if this guy is of the same kind as the Dragon Clan, it is difficult to say whether it will buy my account or not. I may not be able to protect you, so you have to think carefully before you speak. To be safe, we will directly turn back the way we came. In any case, it can't detect us now, the ghostly thing said calmly, leaving the choice to Lin Yi. Curiosity not only killed the cat, but it also killed people. It was impossible for Lin Yi not to understand this principle. After thinking for a moment, he decided, let's continue forward and see. If I don't find out what the other party is, I can't continue to stay in this place with peace of mind. After all, the most important thing in cultivation is to be impatient. If I don't solve this problem, I will have to give up this rare cultivation treasure land. So no matter what, I have to try. Tisk tsk, it's good that you have this awareness. I thought you would be a tortoise hiding in its shell. Oh no, it should be an ostrich that buries its head in the sand. The ghostly thing laughed. Ostrich. Linny was instantly speechless. He could not help but secretly criticize the ghostly thing in his heart. This guy went to the secular world, but he did not find the bloodline of the king of spirit beasts. Instead, he learned a bunch of new words. Even in this state, he still has the mood to learn these things. As expected, his mind is strong even if he is disabled. After making his decision, Linny immediately continued forward with the spirit bird at the same slow speed as before. Although he had already made up his mind to find out what the other party was, the ideal situation was to not let the other party detect them first. After all, this was the only way to ensure his safety. Chapter 4562. That's great. Upon hearing this, Lin Yi's spirit was lifted. Now, he only wanted to figure out who the other party was, so that he could finally decide whether to leave or stay. The man and the bird continued to slowly move forward for a while, their palms sweating from nervousness. Only when the ghostly thing's voice sounded again did they finally breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, this distance is enough. I'll start to crack the other party's divine sense shield. A little bit of time is enough. Okay. Linny quickly stopped moving. This kind of pressure of not knowing what the other party was, but being forced to move closer and closer, was really not something that an ordinary person could bear, especially in this empty underground environment. If it were someone with a slightly weaker mental quality, they would probably directly collapse. Linny could clearly feel a wave of divine sense radiating from the top of his head. Although the 5 Poison Swamp had a very strong restriction on divine sense, even in this space, with Lin Yi's current strength, it was very difficult to freely use divine sense, and his perception ability was countless times weaker than on the ground. However, the ghostly thing was on him. Even if he could not feel it normally, when the divine sense was strong, he could still feel it. It was a completely subconscious movement. Originally, Lin Yi's divine sense was inexplicably trapped in this empty space, but along with the divine sense of the ghostly thing, it unexpectedly passed through his body. This was something that had never happened before. What was even more outrageous was that Lin Yi's divine sense did not stop there. Instead, using the ghostly thing's divine sense as a bridge, it crossed a distance of dozens of miles, all the way to the other party's body. The ghostly thing was a little stunned. Even it had encountered this kind of thing for the first time. But then it laughed. A little interesting. This kid really can't be measured by common sense. It seems that not only is his talent in the 5 elements and 7 attributes amazing, But even his divine sense is also a freak. This is a rare seedling. It seems that I'll be very busy in the future. After the ghostly thing reacted, it did not stop Lin Yi. After all, for Lin Yi, this was a subconscious awakening of divine sense. Although he had not yet reached the threshold of systematic divine sense cultivation, this kind of spontaneous preschool education opportunity could be encountered but not sought. It could be said to be greatly beneficial to the cultivation of divine sense in the future. Naturally, the ghostly thing would not stop him. This feeling is indeed a little familiar, but that doesn't make sense. Apart from you, Senior, I haven't come into contact with any other dragons. Lin Yi suddenly exclaimed. He himself was completely unaware of this. He thought that the ghost had connected their divine senses and deliberately let him see who the other party was. It's okay. As long as I break its divine sense barrier, I'll know everything I need to know, the ghostly thing said, and then began to sink its mind, trying to penetrate the opponent's divine sense barrier. Lin Yi was about to nod his head, but before the ghostly thing could finish speaking, a deafening roar suddenly came from dozens of miles ahead. Immediately, the target that had been locked on by the divine sense flew towards Lin Yi at a rapid speed. Its speed was so fast that it made one's scalp tingle. Although Lin Yi had not seen the spiritual bird's extreme speed, his intuition told him that the other party's speed could easily kill the spiritual bird. Could it have sensed it? Lin Yi suddenly felt nervous. He had never thought that such a situation would occur. The other party could actually detect him, who was also protected by divine sense, before the ghostly thing could break its divine sense barrier. Didn't this mean that the other party's divine sense foundation was weaker than the ghostly thing's? That's definitely not too far off. What kind of fucking level is this existence? Of course, isn't it obvious? The ghostly thing smiled bitterly. Originally, it was confident that no one would notice it. Who knew that Lin Yi's divine sense would also come to join in the fun? If the other party's divine sense barrier was compared to a door, the ghostly thing should have used a master key to quietly enter. However, because of Lin Yi's interference, it forcibly broke through the door. It would be strange if the other party could not even detect it. However, the ghostly thing could not do anything. Although it would take a lot of risk to be discovered by the other party, in comparison, it was more important not to disturb Lin Yi's divine sense awakening. In its opinion, as long as Lin Yi was unwilling to give up this cultivation treasure land, he would have to deal with the other party sooner or later anyway. It was not a big deal to be discovered. What will come sooner or later. Let's take a good look at this guy's Lushan Mountain. Lin Yi quickly calmed down, and his whole body surged with fighting spirit. Since entering here, he had not had a chance to fight. Now was the right time to test how strong he was as an early nascent soul stage cultivator. Even if he knew that he was no match for the ghostly thing, he would do his best to find out where his limits were. Hee, your courage is not bad, but I think your fighting spirit is a bit of a waste. The ghostly thing suddenly laughed, and its originally somewhat nervous tone also became relaxed. What do you mean? Lin Yi looked puzzled. Before he could figure out what was going on, his divine sense had automatically retracted into his body. So unless the other party entered his line of sight, he would not be able to see the other party's face, no matter how close they were. Kid, didn't you also feel that the other party's aura is a bit familiar and strange? Let me tell you, this guy is indeed an old friend, your old friend. The ghostly thing laughed. My old friend. Lin Yi immediately became even more confused. He did not know many spirit beasts, and even the number of spirit beasts in the secular world and the heavenly stage island could be counted on one hand. Previously, he had encountered the great fire lion and the big spider in the Awa cultivation city ruins. Could it be them again this time? No way. Roar, roar, roar. While Lin Yi was in a daze, the other party had already arrived in front of him with a loud roar. At this distance, he did not even need to use his divine sense to sense it, and could even see it clearly with his naked eye. Its entire body exuded a terrifying murderous aura that was close to materialization, causing one to be unable to breathe. It was estimated to be at least 10 meters long, with 4 thick and sturdy claws, a long tail full of sharpness, a pair of huge wings on both sides of its back, and a row of extremely hard and sharp sword-like spikes in the center. It was a ghastly sight. It was simply like a dinosaur that walked out of the Jurassic period. Five Evils dragon? How come it's you? Lenny blurted out in shock. He never would have thought that he'd meet this old friend of his from the common world here. It's actually you, a human cultivator? The Five Evils dragon also recognized Lenny at once. It seemed to be surprised and happy, and the baleful aura and killing intent on its body immediately dissipated. It had thought that some powerful enemy had come to attack, but it did not expect it to be such an old friend. Chapter 4563. Lin Yi and the Dragon of Five Evils were not old friends. It would be more accurate to say that they were enemies. However, coming to Heaven Island from the mortal world was like meeting an old friend from 1,000 miles away. Even if they were not old friends, they were now. This could be seen from the Dragon of Five Evils' happy expression. Whoosh! Roar! You human cultivators can come here. So can I. However, I did not expect you to come to a place like this. And you are already a nascent soul cultivator. You are not simple. The Dragon of Five Evils could not hide its surprise. Ling Yi's body was full of battle intent, and he did not hide his strength at all. Naturally, he could tell at a glance. Yes, I also did not expect to meet you in a place like this. The things in this world are really unexpected. Lin Yi laughed. Ho ho, don't you humans have a saying? Enemies don't meet unless they're enemies? To be honest, if I were to meet you like this under normal circumstances, I wouldn't be so friendly even if I didn't beat you to death on the spot. I still remember how you ruined my plans. The Dragon of Five Evils made a very human-like expression. It was a strange expression on a dinosaur's face. Oh, what about now? Lin Yi asked with interest. Now. Sigh. The Dragon of Five Evils let out a long sigh and almost spat at Lin Yi. It sighed and said, I am too lonely in this place. Don't mention a living creature. I can't even see a single plant. It is all barren, and I cannot see the sun. If it were you impetuous humans, you would have gone crazy long ago. However, I do not dare to go out. It is rare for me to see someone, and it is an old acquaintance from the mortal world. Of course I am happy. So don't worry, I will not harm you. Haha, that is good. To be honest, I entered this place by chance and am trapped here. But why can't you go out? Could it be that you cannot withstand the pressure of this swamp? The killing intent of the five elements should have no effect on you, right? Lin Yi asked curiously. He knew that the Dragon of Five Evils was the same as him. It also had the five elements. In theory, it should be able to withstand the killing intent of the five elements. Roar, do you think this swamp can trap me? The Dragon of Five Evils immediately laughed out loud. It did not directly answer Lin Yi's question. Instead, it suddenly opened the pair of huge wings on its back. With a gentle flap, its huge body instantly soared into the sky. Lin Yi's eyelids twitched when he saw this. Even at such a close distance, he was unable to sense any powerful airflow. However, the Dragon of Five Evils was able to reach a speed so fast that it was difficult for the naked eye to capture it. This was enough to prove that the Dragon of Five Evils had reached the point of perfection in its control. If it were to unleash its full power, its speed would be far greater than before. Even the spirit bird would not be able to catch up to it. It was too terrifying. Lin Yi could not help but feel a little absent-minded. As far as he knew, the Five Evils dragon was not a spiritual beast that was known for its speed. Now that it had suddenly displayed such a shocking skill, it was truly inconceivable. However, this was nothing. The speed displayed by the Dragon of Five Evils only caused Lin Yi to be absent-minded. However, what it did next in the Five Poison Swamp caused even someone as calm as Lin Yi's jaw to drop. He was unable to say anything for a long time. Strictly speaking, the Dragon of Five Evils did not do anything special after jumping into the Five Poison Swamp above its head. It only leisurely swam around the Five Poison Swamp. This in itself was not strange. After all, like Lin Yi, it possessed all five elements. The five elemental killing intent would not attack Lin Yi's body, which was protected by his chi. Naturally, It would not attack the dragon of 5 evils either. However, what caused Lin Yi to be dumbfounded was that when the dragon of 5 evils suddenly released the powerful aura hidden within its body, the 5 elemental killing intent that was constantly roaming around its body suddenly scattered in all directions. The 5 poison swamp was the territory of the 5 elemental killing intent. However, at this moment, where the dragon of 5 evils was, there was not a single trace of the 5 elemental killing intent within a radius of several miles. All of the 5 elemental killing intent had fled on their own. The 5 elemental killing intent was not a living thing. It did not have any thoughts or consciousness. However, even if it was just a pure killing intent, after condensing to such a degree, it would inevitably develop a trace of intelligence. Therefore, when faced with an existence that was far above it, it would take the initiative to flee. However, the strongest of the 5 elemental killing intents gave Lin Yi a pressure that was no weaker than that of the spirit beast guards that he had seen earlier. How could such a terrifying existence be frightened to such an extent by the dragon of 5 evils? Feeling the huge pressure that was emitted from the 5 poison swamp layer above his head, the overwhelming feeling of a fiend god descending on earth immediately shocked Lin Yi. Although he was far from such a level, he could at least see that the current dragon of 5 evils was definitely far above the mountain opening period. The West Mountain Elder, who was known as the Mountain Opening Period Evil Cultivator, was simply insignificant in front of the dragon of 5 evils. Even the 3 giants of the Morning Star Academy in the East Continent that Lin Yi had seen before were far inferior to it. They were not on the same level at all. What kind of strength is this? Lin Yi swallowed his saliva with difficulty and looked at the dragon of 5 evils above his head with a face full of shock. Earth opening period. The ghostly thing pretended to be indifferent as it explained. However, at this moment, even its tone carried a rare hint of shock that was difficult to conceal. The dragon of 5 evils in front of it was completely different from the one that he had seen in the secular world. If it had not been confirmed just now, the ghostly thing would definitely not have equated the two of them. It would only have thought that it had seen the ancestor of the dragon of 5 evils in the secular world. After all, the difference in strength between them was more than 108,000 miles. How long had it been? It had not even been 2 years. The fact that Lin Yi could grow from the initial foundation establishment stage to the current original infant stage was already very exaggerated and shocking in itself. However, the dragon of 5 evils had unexpectedly become an existence of the earth opening period. In front of it, Lin Yi could not even be counted as a small sorcerer in the presence of a great sorcerer. Had the world gone crazy? Earth opening period? Lin Yi was momentarily confused. Although it was the first time he had heard of this term, he could tell that it was not a trivial matter just by hearing the name. The realm above the mountain opening period is the earth opening period. Those who can reach this level are considered to have great magical powers. The ghostly thing explained lightly. Upon hearing this, Lin Yi suddenly understood. The dragon of 5 evils was indeed in existence above the mountain opening period. This trip to the South Continent was really not in vain. Even if he did not mention the various fortuitous encounters and the sharp increase in strength, his horizons were much broader than before. Chapter 45-64. While they were talking, the dragon of 5 evils suddenly descended from the sky. It was so fast that Lin Yi was shocked. The dragon of 5 evils stared at Lin Yi and said in surprise, "Roar, another old acquaintance?" Although the ghostly thing and Lin Yi were communicating through divine sense, they did not deliberately shield their divine sense fluctuations. It was not surprising that the dragon of 5 evils sensed it. After all, it had seen the ghostly thing in the secular world, so it had a deep impression of its divine sense. When it saw the ghostly thing in the secular world, it was so scared that it trembled, as if it was treading on thin ice. However, it was now at the earth opening stage. After sensing the ghostly thing's existence, although it was a little surprised, it was not as fearful as before. After all, it was now at a very high level. No matter how terrifying and powerful the existence was, It would at most be afraid of it, but it would not be in awe. Not bad. You've made a lot of progress in the past 2 years. The ghostly thing laughed and suddenly appeared next to Lin Yi. Of course, it was still a cloud of black fog. They had crossed paths in the secular world before. And the Dragon of Five Evils was also a member of the Dragon Clan to him. Now that the Dragon of Five Evils had made it clear that it was not hostile to him, there was no harm in revealing itself. After all, although the Dragon of Five Evils was a spiritual beast with high spiritual intelligence, it was simple and honest in nature. It did not hold back its evil intentions like human cultivators. The Dragon of Five Evils stared at the black fog in front of it, and could not help but be surprised. You are in the form of a primordial spirit, and you have the aura of our Dragon Clan. Although it had met the ghostly thing in the secular world, it did not show itself directly at that time. It only felt the overwhelming pressure of the ghostly thing, and did not know that the ghostly thing was only an incomplete primordial spirit. I am a Dragon Clan. Speaking of this, why do I feel that your aura is a little different from before? Why does it seem to have the aura of a flood dragon? And how did your strength suddenly increase so much? The ghostly thing was also puzzled. It did not feel this way before when it was far away, but now it was close at hand. He could clearly sense the slight change in the other party's aura. Even though he had never seen a flood dragon before, all dragons were originally one. So he naturally knew that this slight change was actually the aura of a flood dragon. It's a long story. The pentafiendish dragon was hesitant to reveal the inside story. However, after a moment's thought he said, "Forget it. I don't have anything to do anyway. Both of you came from the secular world, so you probably don't know much about this world. I'll just tell you about it. Complain." When Lin Yi heard this, a strange expression appeared on his face. The Five Evils dragon was a ferocious and terrifying super-spiritual beast. Moreover, it was a high and mighty existence of the earth-opening realm. Now it said that it wanted to complain to him and the ghost. This kind of thing was really strange. This five-poison swamp was originally the territory of a flood dragon. Its name was the Five-Poison Flood Dragon. The Five Fiends dragon said slowly. "What? There's really a flood dragon?" The ghost could not help but be surprised. It had previously spent a lot of effort to investigate this place, but in the end, it did not find anything suspicious. Especially after seeing the flood dragon's 5 elements murderous chi. It thought that the previous eyewitness reports had mistaken the 5 elements murderous chi. It did not expect that this matter was actually true. Of course it's true. When I first came up from the secular world, I was directly transported to this 5-poison swamp. At first, I also thought that there were no spiritual beasts in this place. I did not expect that a powerful clan like the 5-poison flood dragon was entrenched here. The 5 Fiends dragon said. "You were transported here from the beginning? Could it be that all spirit beasts were teleported to this place? Isn't that very dangerous?" Lin Yi could not help but be surprised. Apart from him and the Dragon of Five Evils, this place was a place of certain death for the other spirit beasts. Any one of the 5 elemental killing intents could easily take their lives. Furthermore, there were countless 5 elemental killing intents gathered in this place. Even the most powerful of existences would not be able to withstand it. That's not it. The fact that it was transported here should be due to its attribute. If it did not possess all 5 elements, it would not have been transported here, the ghost explained. That seems to be the case. In any case, I was the only one transported here. I was caught off guard and fell from the 5-poison swamp to this place. However, even though my strength was low at the time, I did not suffer any injuries. The 5 Fiends dragon looked at the ghost and was slightly surprised that it knew so much. However, it did not ask any questions and continued. After I descended, I encountered the 5-poison flood dragon here. Seeing that I was from the same clan, not only did it not harm me, but it also took me in as a disciple and brought me along to cultivate. In that case, your luck is quite good. Lin Yi could not help but sigh when he heard this. According to what the ghostly thing had said before, even the Dragon Clan might not necessarily be so friendly with each other. If their strength was about the same, they might mind their own business. However, if there was a huge disparity in strength, then the weak would very likely become food for the strong. The law of the jungle had always been the law of the jungle. Who would have thought that this 5 Venoms Flood Dragon would treat the 5 Venoms Dragon differently? It had to be said that the 5 Venoms Dragon was extremely lucky. It's not just luck. I can more or less guess what the 5 Poison Flood Dragon is thinking. The ghost laughed and speculated. Our dragon clan has always been small. Even if we are not friendly with each other, under normal circumstances, we will not kill each other without any scruples like the other spirit beasts. Moreover, there are only a few dragon clan that can safely enter the 5 Poison Swamp. Aside from the 5 Poison Flood Dragon, the 5 Poison Flood Dragon might be the only one that can do so. Therefore, the 5 Poison Flood Dragon must be eager to hunt. If it does not take the 5 Poison Flood Dragon as a disciple, it is very likely that it will never have a disciple in its lifetime. That's right. My master said the same thing. Moreover, it has cultivated here alone for many years. It is rare for me to talk to it, so how could it kill me? Roar. As the 5 Poison Flood Dragon spoke, it looked at the ghost in surprise. Why does it feel like this guy knows everything like the back of its hand? Who is it? What happened after that? That's right, why don't I see your master here? Could it be that he went out to do something? Linny continued to ask. He had actually stayed here for a long time. However, he had not seen either the 5 Poison Flood Dragon or the 5 Poison Flood Dragon. It could only be said that the underground space was not small. If he had not searched around on the spirit bird, he would have thought that there was no one here. Chapter 4565. Dead. Both Lin Yi and the ghost were shocked at the same time. Even the 5 Bane Dragon was at Earth opening level, and the 5 Poison Jiao Dragon, as its master, had to be even stronger. A super spirit beast of that level couldn't even die easily, let alone be killed by a human. How did it die so suddenly? One day, there was a special sound transmission from the spirit beasts in the sky above the entire South Island, saying that Elder Azure Dragon had been missing for several years, and there had been no news of him until now. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. Now that the new king of spirit beasts had succeeded the throne, the position of Elder Azure Dragon, as his right-hand man, naturally couldn't be left vacant. Therefore, the king decided to hold an open selection for the new Elder Azure Dragon. There was a minimum requirement for registration, and that is, the strength of the dragon clan must be above the sea-splitting stage. The Dragon of 5 Evils said from the beginning. The sea-splitting stage? Linny was stunned. Another new stage that he did not understand. Above the earth-opening stage is the sea-splitting stage. If you want to become a top-notch elder of the Spirit Beast clan, the sea-splitting stage is the basic requirement. Otherwise, you won't be able to subdue so many arrogant and powerful spirit beasts. Even the prestige of the dragon clan won't be enough. Even the spirit beasts of your own clan may not be able to subdue them, let alone other clans. The ghostly thing explained. I see. Lin Yi's eyes lit up. He had been guessing what the ghost was at its peak. From the mysterious ascending stage to the mountain opening stage, and then the earth opening stage, he had guessed almost all of them. But now he had a general idea. It should be the sea-splitting stage, or even higher. It was terrifying just thinking about it. So your master, the 5 Poison Jiao Dragon, is going to participate in the selection for the new Elder Azure Dragon? The ghost turned to the Dragon of 5 Evils and asked. Yes, my master is qualified. Although he doesn't show himself, he is not completely pure. He still has some ambitions. This time, he has a chance to become the new Elder Azure Dragon. Of course, he won't let it go. Besides, with his strength, he has a high chance of winning. If nothing goes wrong, this position will be his. The Dragon of 5 Evils said. Although I've never seen this 5 Poisons Flood Dragon before, with its powerful talents of all 5 elements, ordinary spirit beasts would find it difficult to defeat it. Even if it were of the same level, it would have a higher chance of winning, the ghostly thing commented. Linny nodded. Since even that ghostly thing had such an evaluation, it meant that this 5 Poison Flood Dragon indeed had the strength to challenge the new Azure Dragon Elder. He couldn't help but ask, what happened after that? Could it be that there's a dragon spirit beast that's more powerful than your master among the participants? No. The Dragon of Five Evils shook its head decisively. No. Were you there during the selection? Lenny was puzzled. I wasn't there. With my strength back then, I could easily become food for other spirit beasts if I went out. Not to mention at the sea-splitting stage, I've already reached the acme of perfection. If I didn't have enough strength, I wouldn't have been able to see anything. Instead, I would have been easily killed by the aftermath. That's why my master didn't bring me along during the selection. The Dragon of Five Evils shook its head. Then why did your master? Lenny didn't finish the sentence. If the five-poison serpent was really that strong, and yet it didn't become the new green dragon elder and died instead, there had to be a lot more to it. My master told me this after he escaped. He was full of confidence when he went to compete for the position of the new Azure Dragon Elder. However, he didn't expect that the Vermilion Bird Elder, who was in charge of this matter, had already chosen a candidate. The so-called open selection was just a formality. It was a pity that although the candidates they had selected were also very strong, in the end my master, who had appeared out of nowhere, was a cut above them. Seeing that the situation had spiraled out of control, after the situation went out of control, the Vermilion Bird Elder secretly poisoned my master. As a result, my master was caught off guard and was seriously injured. He desperately escaped back to the five-poison swamp. The Dragon of Five Evils said through gritted teeth. Oh, since he was able to escape back here, even the Vermilion Bird Elder should be helpless against him. How did he die? The ghostly thing suddenly asked. The five-poison swamp could only be entered by spirit beasts or human cultivators who possessed all five elements. So far, there were only three ghostly things that could enter. They were the five-poison flood dragon, the Dragon of Five Evils, and Lenny. Apart from them, no matter how strong they were, they couldn't enter. Not to mention the Vermilion Bird. Even if it was at its peak, it wouldn't be able to do anything. Therefore, this was a natural shelter. In theory, as long as it could escape back, it would be absolutely safe. No matter how strong the Vermilion Bird Elder was, it wouldn't be able to do anything. Although my master barely managed to escape, he was already seriously injured and was on the verge of death. He couldn't rely on himself to heal himself. However, the Vermilion Bird Elder had sent people to guard the swamp, so it wasn't realistic for him to find someone to help him escape. In the end, he could only accept his fate and forcefully pass on his powerful strength to me. That's why my strength increased so quickly. Unfortunately, my master's injuries were too serious. At that time, I hadn't received all of the inheritance when he was already on the verge of death. When the Dragon of Five Evils said this, the majestic Earth opening stage super existence couldn't stop its eyes from turning red. Although it was a ferocious and powerful spirit beast, it was far more affectionate than an ordinary human. The five-poison flood dragon was not only its master, but also its loving father. It was the only warmth it had felt since arriving at the Heaven Stage Island. Especially when it had passed on all of its strength to it. Even its own son couldn't do anything. Men didn't easily shed tears, and the five-poison flood dragon had never known what tears were. However, the death of the five-poison flood dragon made it taste tears for the first time in its life. Lenny couldn't help but be speechless when he saw this. He didn't expect the five-poison flood dragon to die because of this. He then subconsciously glanced at the ghost east and thought to himself, although the five-poison flood dragon was strong, if they were to really compare, it was likely that the ghost, the former Azure Dragon, was stronger. If the five-poison flood dragon had been replaced with the ghost, it would have been able to escape to the five-poison swamp in the form of a primordial spirit. In the future, there would have been a chance for it to make a comeback. Of course, this kind of heaven-defying ability was probably unique in the world. After all, the primordial spirit was attached to the physical body. Once the physical body died, no matter how strong the primordial spirit was, it would become water without a source or a tree without roots. In the end, it could only gradually wither away, and could not continue to exist like this ghostly thing. Chapter 4566. The baleful aura on its body poured out without restraint, causing the entire 5-poison swamp to churn violently. As for Lin Yi, who was very close to it, he almost suffered internal injuries. Fortunately, his strength had risen sharply recently. Otherwise, if he had been accidentally killed by the agitated 5-poisons dragon, he would not have been able to die in peace. That bastard vermilion bird actually dared to do such a thing. This is intolerable. Once I recover my strength, I'll definitely be the first to tear it apart. The ghostly being was also fuming with rage. As the former Azure Dragon, it could be said to be the undisputed leader of the dragon tribe. Now that it heard that an important member of the dragon tribe, the 5-poison serpent, had been killed by the vermilion bird, it wanted nothing more than to fight the vermilion bird to the death. The dragon of 5 evils was still immersed in grief and rage. When it heard the ghostly thing's words, it suddenly froze. It looked at the ghostly thing with an inquisitive gaze. It had been wondering about the ghostly thing's identity from the very beginning. From the way it spoke, it seemed like it could even deal with the vermilion bird at its peak. 5 evils kid, do you know who I am? The ghostly thing suddenly asked the 5 evils dragon. Aren't you just a primordial spirit from the mortal world? The 5 fiends dragon could not help but ask in surprise. A primordial spirit from the mortal world? Do you think a place with such thin spiritual chi in the secular world would have a single primordial spirit appear out of nowhere? The ghostly thing curled its lips and snorted before revealing its identity. To tell you the truth, I am the Azure Dragon Elder who has been missing for many years. Ah, your Elder Azure Dragon? How was this possible? Then how did you end up like this? The Dragon of 5 Evils was extremely shocked upon hearing this. Even its master, the 5-poison flood dragon, was unable to become an Elder of the Azure Dragon in the end. Although there was a reason for this, it felt that the previous Azure Dragon had to have been an extremely terrifying top-notch spirit beast. How could he only have a broken primordial spirit? I can't explain it in 1 or 2 sentences, so let's put it simply. I only ended up like this because I wanted to go to the secular world. I can only struggle at death's door. Otherwise, I wouldn't have allowed that bastard vermilion bird to act so unscrupulously. The ghostly thing smiled bitterly. The dragon of 5 evils was completely stunned. A pair of huge eyes were filled with disbelief as they sized up the ghostly thing from head to toe. But the inside information was enough for it to digest for a while. After a moment of silence, the dragon of 5 evils suddenly prostrated on the ground and bowed respectfully to the ghostly thing in the unique way of the dragon clan. The dragon of 5 evils pays respect to Senior Azure Dragon. If it was someone else, the dragon of 5 evils wouldn't have believed them so easily. However, it had interacted with them in the mortal world before, and it also sensed the aura of a senior from the same clan from this ghostly thing. Previously, when they were in the secular world, due to their low cultivation, the 5 malice dragons only knew that the other party was far stronger than them. Apart from that, it was completely clueless about everything else. However, this time, it was already at the earth-opening stage. At such a close distance, it could clearly feel the faint ancient aura of the dragon clan on the ghostly thing. Even when it was angry just now, even it was trembling. There was only one explanation for this. Even if the ghostly thing in front of it was not the Azure Dragon Elder, it must be an experienced senior of the dragon clan. Since it was a senior of the dragon clan, the ghostly thing's words were naturally trustworthy. But then again, there was no need for the ghostly thing to lie to it. After all, it was meaningless. The dragon of 5 evils wouldn't really obey the other party, just because it was the former Azure Dragon Elder. At most, it would be more respectful. Get up. I'm no longer the Azure Dragon Elder. If you call me Senior Azure Dragon, people will think that you're an accomplice of that bastard vermilion bird. The ghostly thing sighed and laughed. You should call me Senior Ghost like Linny does. Yes, Senior Ghost. The dragon of 5 evils quickly changed its address. Then, it looked at Lin Yi and couldn't help but ask, I was wondering why you guys came to this place. I'm a spirit beast with 5 elements. It's understandable that I was teleported to this 5-poison swamp. But how did a human cultivator like you end up here? Could it be that you're not a human, but a spirit beast in disguise? Listening to the Dragon of 5 Evils' wild speculation, Lin Yi, who was initially speechless, was immediately amused. He said speechlessly, "You're at the Earth opening stage now. Can't you tell if I'm a human or a spirit beast?" Originally I could tell. But isn't there a senior ghost? Maybe he used some special method to make people completely unable to tell that you're a spirit beast? The Dragon of 5 Evils shook its big head. Although it was only a broken primordial spirit, it was still very trusting of the ghostly thing, the former Azure Dragon. "Alright, then I can tell you with certainty that I'm a human." Linny laughed and shook his head. Seeing that the Dragon of 5 Evils was still confused, he explained, "The reason why I fell down here is because I was chased by a demonic cultivator called the West Mountain Elder. I had no choice but to escape here. This is the only place where he doesn't dare to chase me down. If it were any other place, I would have been killed 10,000 times." West Mountain Elder? Is this demonic cultivator very strong? The Dragon of 5 Evils asked casually, although it was completely incomparable to an earth-opening stage being. In its opinion, Lin Yi's strength was not weak. Moreover, he had the help of the ghostly thing. An ordinary expert would not be able to chase him so embarrassedly. He's an evil cultivator at the mountain opening stage. To you he's nothing, but to me he's very troublesome. I've already escaped here for a few months, but that guy still hasn't given up. Until now he still sent people to monitor and guard the top. Once I go up, he'll know immediately, so I'm completely trapped here." Linny paused and looked at the Dragon of 5 Evils. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he said, "By the way, if I go out and kill those 2 spies, the West Mountain Elder will definitely rush over. Can't you help me get rid of him? He's just an opening mountain elder. It should be a piece of cake for you, right?" "That's natural. If he dares to behave atrociously in front of me, I'll kill him in minutes," the Dragon of 5 Evils said arrogantly. This was not a boast. With its current strength at the Earth opening stage, it was absolutely a piece of cake to deal with the West Mountain Elder. "Well, I'll go up and kill those 2 bastards, Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan. It just so happens that we have some old grudges. Once they're dead, the West Mountain Elder will come immediately. I'll leave it to you." Linny immediately decided. He would not trouble others with his character. But this time, he really had no other choice. Chapter 4567. Generally speaking, no matter how strong and terrifying the opponent was, Linny would wait until he was strong enough to kill him. However, West Mountain Elder was too much of a hindrance. He could not even return to the North Island. He could only watch helplessly as the deadline was about to pass. Now that he had unexpectedly found a strong helper like the Dragon of 5 Evils, it was not impossible for him to get rid of West Mountain Elder with its help. Wait a minute. Killing that nuisance West Mountain Old Sect Master is indeed not a problem for me, but... The Dragon of 5 Evils hesitated for a moment with a troubled expression, then lowered its head in embarrassment and said weakly, "But I don't dare to go up there." "Huh? You don't dare to go up? Why?" Linny was stunned. "You don't know this. Ever since my master, the 5-poison flood dragon, escaped, the vermilion bird has been keeping an eye on this 5-poison swamp. They are afraid that my master will not die, so they specially set up a monitoring formation unique to the Spirit Beast clan. It is specifically aimed at my master. Once this monitoring formation detects the slightest aura of the dragon clan, the vermilion bird will immediately rush over, and I will be in big trouble," the Dragon of 5 Evils said helplessly. Although it was a transcendent being at the Earth opening stage, there was still a big gap between it and the vermilion bird, a top elder of the Spirit Beast clan. Even its master, the 5-poison flood dragon, was no match for the vermilion bird. If they really fought, it would be killed in minutes. The vermilion bird set up a monitoring formation? Haha, we are really in the same boat. Linny could only smile helplessly. He did not expect the vermilion bird to be as careful as West Mountain Elder. Lin Yi and the Dragon of 5 Evils were monitored by West Mountain Elder and the vermilion bird. They were really in the same boat. According to my master, I have not shown up since I was teleported here. So the Spirit Beast clan still does not know of my existence. They only know that my master, the 5-poison flood dragon, is here. As such, before I become powerful enough to seek revenge on the vermilion bird, I definitely can't expose my aura. I can only hide here and cultivate in secret. The 5 Banes dragon looked at Lin Yi with an apologetic expression. It really did have the intention to help Lin Yi. But if the price was that the vermilion bird would notice or even kill it, then it would be too unwise. No matter how impulsive it wasn't that brainless. If that's the case, then forget it. Let the old monster of Shishan old sect live for a while longer. There's still a long way to go. I'll think of another way to get out of here. Lenny nodded. If it was just a small favor, it didn't matter. However, if he ended up harming the dragons of 5 evils, because of him, he would feel bad. By the way, why did that evil cultivator called West Mountain Old Sect Master want to kill you? Did you kill his father or his son? The dragon of 5 evils asked curiously. Not much different. I killed 2 of his disciples, and one of them seemed to be his nephew, so he chased me all over the world. I had been chased once before, but I got rid of him after I escaped to the interior of the South Island. This time, I planned to go back to the North Island, but I was found by him as soon as I got out of the dock. The 5-poison swamp was the only place nearby, and he didn't dare to enter it. So Senior Ghost asked me to escape here and hide for a while. I didn't expect him to be so persistent. It's been 4 months, and he still asked someone to guard it. I can't get out of here. Lenny gave a simple explanation and shrugged helplessly. He had encountered such a persistent enemy, like West Mountain Old Sect Master. He was really losing his temper. Alas, it's a pity that I can't protect myself now, and I can't help you. The dragon of 5 evils sighed. It's okay. Who would have thought that we would be such brothers in hardship? I'll figure out a way to get out by myself. Lenny smiled and waved his hand. A living person couldn't be suffocated to death. As long as he was willing to put in the effort, he believed that he could find a way. Roar. Although I can't directly help you kill West Mountain Old Sect Master, it's not impossible to get out if you just want to get out. The dragon of 5 evils suddenly laughed and pretended to be mysterious. You probably don't know that the 5-poison swamp is not the only exit in this space where we are now. Is there a second exit? Lenny was surprised and happy. It was not important to kill West Mountain Old Sect Master, but if there was a second exit that could get rid of West Mountain Old Sect Master's surveillance, everything would be easy. Yes, as far as I know, there is a second exit. The dragon of 5 evils nodded affirmatively. Don't be fooled by the murderous aura of the 5 elements above. In fact, many places are not within the scope of the 5-poison swamp. If you go up, you will find that it is blocked by the ground. So if you want to get in and out of here, you have to go through an exit. The 5-poison swamp you came in is just one of them. There is another way to get in and out of here. Really? That's great. Please take me there and have a look. Lenny said hurriedly. Now there was not much time left before the deadline of the task, but as long as he could get out successfully, Lenny believed that he could get back to the North Island in time. After all, the spirit bird was a spirit beast of the nascent soul realm now, and its flying speed was much faster than when it came here. West Mountain Old Sect Master would definitely only guard the 5-poison swamp. He probably didn't even know that there was such a mysterious and vast space below, let alone the second exit. Therefore, as long as he went through the second exit mentioned by the dragon of 5 evils, he could definitely get rid of West Mountain Old Sect Master without being noticed. Well, it's not a problem to get rid of West Mountain Old Sect Master through the second exit, but the dragon of 5 evils suddenly stopped talking. But what? Lenny asked hurriedly. But the second exit is not like the 5-poison swamp here. Although it is also densely covered with the murderous aura of the 5 elements, you can definitely get out. But it depends on whether you have the courage to do so. The dragon of 5 evils looked at Lin Yi and said, What? Is there danger outside? Lin Yi's heart suddenly tightened. He had finally found a way out, and he didn't want to be doused with cold water again. It's not that dangerous. However, just like the swamp of 5 poisons, there is a monitoring array formation that specifically targets my master. Although you don't have the aura of the dragon clan on you, and you won't trigger too much of a reaction from the array formation, you will still be discovered, the Dragon of 5 Malice explained. Chapter 4568. My master is a great threat to them. Of course they don't take it seriously, or they will lose their positions. The Dragon of 5 Evils curled its lips and said, "That's true. But although the exit you mentioned has a monitoring formation, it won't do anything to me. When I came in from the 5 Poison Swamp, I didn't attract any spirit beasts." Lenny rubbed his chin and said thoughtfully, "It won't, but it's hard to say here." The Dragon of 5 Evils shook its head. "Why?" Lenny was slightly surprised. "Because it's the territory of the spirit beasts. It can be regarded as the hinterland of the South Island." The Dragon of 5 Evils said. It had never gone to that exit. To be exact, it had never gone out since it was transmitted here. However, the 5 Poisons Flood Dragon had told it many things before it died. Besides, it had accepted the strength of the 5 Poisons Flood Dragon, which involved the inheritance of the primordial spirit and many memories of the 5 Poisons Flood Dragon. Damn, the hinterland of the South Island. How dare I go there? Lenny was speechless. The hinterland of the South Island was a forbidden area for human cultivators. Moreover, he had been noticed by the vermilion bird before. If he showed up in such a suspicious place, he would be courting death. The 5 Poisons Swamp might not have been guarded by spirit beasts because it was too remote. But it might not be the case here. This was the hinterland of the South Island of the spirit beasts. It was just a matter of convenience to send a few powerful spirit beasts to guard it. Vermilion Bird's behavior was almost the same as that of West Mountain Elder. Unless it saw the dead body, it wouldn't give up easily, no matter how long it had been. Right, you can't go back to the South Island now. You may have a chance to survive, facing the evil cultivator of West Mountain Elder. But if you're noticed by the Vermilion Bird in the hinterland of the South Island, you won't even know how you die. The ghost didn't agree with Lenny going to this exit. It knew the suspicious character of the Vermilion Bird. If Lenny suddenly rushed out from this suspicious exit, he would definitely be caught, and his divine sense would be extracted without any hesitation. If that happened, he would definitely be captured without hesitation, and his divine sense would be extracted. There was no other possibility. Why? It's dangerous for a human cultivator to appear in the hinterland of the South Island. But with your strength and the protection of Senior Ghost, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to escape. The monitoring formation won't react much to you. As long as you don't get caught by the spirit beasts when you go out, it shouldn't be a problem. You don't know this. Last time when I was chased by the West Mountain sect and fled to the South Island, I accidentally broke into the Spirit Beast conference held by Vermilion Bird and others, and I was suspected in public. I almost got away, and then I had to go to the toilet to escape. Then I escaped. I Spirit Beast. I. Originally, he was just an insignificant person. Normally, even if he was found to be a human cultivator, he could escape, and Vermilion Bird would not make a big fuss about it. However, he happened to hear Vermilion Bird's big plan. If he leaked it in advance, it would easily ruin his plan. Maybe the plan would be aborted halfway. If Lenny was in Vermilion Bird's position, he would definitely not hesitate to put himself on the wanted list and kill him. I can't believe it. I really can't go out from that exit. Hearing this, the Dragon of 5 Evils looked at Lenny again in surprise. It didn't expect that Lenny had an encounter with Vermilion Bird. It was really lucky that he could escape unscathed with his little strength. Alas, it seems that God wants me to stay here and cultivate for a while. Since I'm here, I'll take things as they come. Anyway, I can't escape from both ends. Let's cultivate together. We can keep each other company. Since there was no way out, Lenny had to accept the reality calmly. That's the only way. The Dragon of 5 Evils nodded. Originally, it was the only one in the vast space, which was boring and depressing. Now, it had an old friend like Lin Yi as a companion, which was a good thing for it. By the way, how do you usually cultivate? Lin Yi suddenly asked. He was very interested in the Dragon of Five Evils, which was a super spirit beast at the Earth opening stage. Moreover, the Dragon of Five Evils had 5 elements just like him. Maybe there was something he could learn from it. Me. My cultivation is sleeping. Before I met you, I was still sleeping. I slept for more than a year. The Dragon of Five Evils answer made Lin Yi's jaw drop. Sleeping is cultivation. Is there any justice in this world? Lin Yi subconsciously turned his head to look at the spirit bird beside him. He had never seen this fellow cultivate. It just hopped around and played around, and it broke through from the peak of the foundation establishment stage all the way to the original infant stage. As for the Dragon of Five Evils, it was simply sleeping. When it woke up, it could level up. If all the spirit beasts were like these two fellows, then they would definitely be favored by God. In contrast, Lin Yi, a human cultivator, could barely level up a few levels. Compared to these two fellows, he was simply too weak. Even Lin Yi was like this, let alone other human cultivators. They were all in tears. Actually, you don't have to be envious. Cultivating in dreams is an inherent talent of most spirit beasts of the dragon clan. After all, dragons are very fond of sleeping. If you expect them to only cultivate when they are awake, they will not be able to level up even if they die. In that case, the dragon clan would have been wiped out a long time ago. The ghost explained with a smile. Don't forget that I have been recovering in a deep sleep. Moreover, the Five Evils has received a powerful inheritance from the Five Poison Flood Dragon. If it does not sleep for a long time, it will not be able to digest its strength. That's still very ridiculous. You can level up by just sleeping. If those human cultivators, who can't even level up by taking pills, heard this, they will spit out a mouthful of blood. Lin Yi was speechless. Chapter 4569. So that's how it is. Sure enough, there are pros and cons. It's impossible to have all the good things. Lin Yi nodded. Opening a window meant closing a door. Otherwise, the Dragon Clan might have been able to rule the entire Heaven Stage Island. Then how do you cultivate? The Pentademon looked at Lin Yi and asked. Me. If it was any other place, the most I could do was to absorb the energy from the surroundings and turn it into my own. But in this place, there's another way, and that's to use the murderous aura of the 5 elements to refine my body. This method is much more effective, but Lin Yi shook his head with regret. But what? The Pentademon asked curiously. If I want to use the 5 elements killing chi, I can only stand on the high platform and cultivate. But I can only touch the weakest 5 elements killing chi at the bottom. For me, the effect is not very good. If I can go a bit closer to the middle and touch the more powerful 5 elements killing chi, the effect should be much better. Unfortunately, if I let the spirit bird carry me up, I won't be able to protect it during the process of cultivation. Lin Yi helplessly shook his head. That's simple. Your spirit bird can't withstand the 5 elements killing chi, but I can. I'll take you up there to cultivate. The Pentademon laughed. That's right. Lin Yi's eyes suddenly lit up. He had forgotten that the Pentademon could also fly. Moreover, the 5 elements killing chi was not a threat to it. Instead, it was afraid of it. It would be great if the Pentademon was willing to help him. However, Lin Yi still hesitated and said, But won't this delay your cultivation? Cultivation, my ass. I told you that for me, sleeping is cultivation. I just slept for more than a year. I have to wake up and relax. The Pentademon curled its lips and said. Then, the Pentademon used an unknown magic power and sucked Lin Yi onto its back. Then, it jumped into the 5 poison swamp and floated a bit above the bottom for Lin Yi to cultivate. As Lin Yi expected, not only was the intensity of the 5 elemental killing aura here stronger, but the quantity was also greater. Immediately, he found the state he was in when he first started cultivating. His body was undergoing a delightful change almost every minute and every moment. His progress was once again tremendous, which made Lin Yi very excited. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months had passed. At this time, the deadline for the task of returning to the North Island had been completely exceeded. North Island, Blue Cloud Pavilion, Lin Yi's residence. Although Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao were not there, the courtyard was not deserted. Instead, it was noisy. Lu Bianren, Ku Zhongle, Xiaoran, Qiao Hongkai, and Li Jingming were all sitting in a circle. Except for Shanghai Laner, the special senior sister, Lin Yi's people were all here. Although Lin Yi had not been in the three pavilions for a long time, and it seemed that he did not deliberately build his force, the people around him had become a force that could not be underestimated. Now, they had become a force that could not be underestimated. Needless to say, Lu Bianren was a senior figure in Blue Cloud Pavilion. Ku Zhongle had long been the third pavilion master of Welcome Pavilion, and Xiao Ran was his assistant. The newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion were completely in the hands of the two of them. As soon as they entered the pavilion, they would naturally be labeled as Lin Yi's people. In addition, Li Zhengming and Qiao Hongkai, with their superior strength and foundation, had gradually made a name for themselves among the outer core disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Stand firm. The power of Lin Yi's people could be said to be thriving. Every once in a while, everyone would regularly gather in Lin Yi's yard. They would take care of each other and strengthen their relationship. However, contrary to this good situation, the people sitting in a circle at this moment were all frowning. No one said anything for a long time, and the atmosphere was extremely dull. I say, why hasn't Boss Lin Yi come back yet? Did he encounter some trouble over there? Qiao Hongkai finally broke the silence. The anxiety on his face was obvious. No matter how big the matter was, he would not be like this with his hot-blooded character. However, it was related to Lin Yi. Not only him, but everyone present could not hide their worry. Yes, senior brother Lu, it has been more than half a year since you separated from junior brother Lin. Even if you want to hunt down the evil cultivator Wu Baoliang, the matter should have come to an end. Why is there no news at all? With junior brother Lin's strength, he should not be Wu Baoliang's opponent, right? Senior brother Ku Zhongle said with a frown. Even if he is not Wu Baoliang's opponent, with boss Lin Yi's ability, it should not be a problem for him to protect himself. He is not someone who will rush to his death, knowing that he is no match for Wu Baoliang. Xiao Ran said with certainty. He had absolute confidence in Lin Yi. He did not believe that Lin Yi would die in the hands of an evil cultivator like Wu Baoliang. With boss Lin Yi's strength, Wu Baoliang should not be a problem. I am worried that he is unfamiliar with the place. If he is forced to be involved in other disputes because he is chasing after Wu Baoliang, or even get himself into trouble, then it will be hard to say, Li Jingming said in a low voice. You can rest assured on this point. The evil cultivator Wu Baoliang has died in the hands of junior brother Lin. This is something that everyone in the South Continent Sea region knows. Lu Bianren comforted everyone. Is this true? Everyone suddenly became spirited, and their burning gazes fell on Lu Bianren. It is absolutely true. A while ago, I asked Pavilion Master Yu to use the internal information channels of the three major pavilions to inquire about the South Continent Sea region. There was a South Continent Escort Agency conference held there, and junior brother Lin killed Wu Baoliang in public at this conference. There is no doubt about this, but Lu Bianren could not help but stop speaking. But what? Senior brother Lu, tell us quickly. Before everyone could breathe a sigh of relief, their hearts tightened, and they quickly asked. After killing the young one, the old one came out. It is said that on the second day after Wu Baoliang was killed, Wu Baoliang's master, the West Mountain Sect master, suddenly came to the conference and ordered junior brother Lin to be killed to avenge his disciple. He is a mountain opening stage evil cultivator. Lu Bianren said with a gloomy face. Mountain opening stage? Senior brother Ku and the others were all at a loss when they heard this. They had not even heard of the mysterious ascension stage, let alone the mountain opening stage. After all, they were only masters of the foundation establishment stage. Above the nascent soul stage is the mysterious ascension stage, and above the mysterious ascension stage is the mountain opening stage. The existence of that stage can dominate an area without any suspense. If he was in our blue cloud pavilion in the north, even if he is not the number one, I am afraid he is not far from it. Lu Bianren sighed and explained to everyone. Chapter 4570. If that's the case, could it be that junior brother Lin has already? Senior brother Ku Bai's face turned pale, and he did not dare to continue. The others' faces were ugly, and their eyes were filled with horror and hesitation. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Who cares about the opening mountain period? Boss Lin Yi will never die in the hands of an evil cultivator. Xiao Hongkai roared in a low voice with red eyes. I also believe that junior brother Lin will definitely not die in the hands of the Western Mountain Elder. In fact, although the Western Mountain Elder hates him to the bone and wants nothing more than to kill him, junior brother Lin did not die in the hands of the Western Mountain Elder on the spot. At least from the situation at the grand meeting, he successfully escaped. Lu Bianren nodded towards the crowd. Escaped? Everyone was stunned when they heard this, and then they all breathed a sigh of relief. They looked at Lu Bianren with some resentment and said, Senior brother Lu, can't you just say everything in one breath next time? You made us so nervous, our hearts can't take it. Hee alright. Lu Bianren smiled apologetically, and then continued. Although he escaped at that time, junior brother Lin's situation is still not good. Facing the pursuit of West Mountain Elder, who is an opening mountain period evil cultivator, the result is still not good. If he could really escape successfully, he should have returned by now, but there is still no news of him now, Sai. With Boss Lin Yi's strength and means, I believe he is definitely not dead. He is not coming back now, but he is hiding somewhere to avoid the limelight. He must be dead. Xiao Hongkai said with conviction. Yes, Boss Lin Yi is a lucky man. Since West Mountain Elder couldn't kill him at that time, it will not be so easy to kill him later. Xiao Ran nodded in agreement. I think so too. From what you've said, Brother Lu, I can see that Boss Lin should be a household name in the Nanzhou Sea region. If he really died in the hands of the West Mountain Elder, the news would definitely spread like wildfire, and it wouldn't be as silent as it is now. Therefore, the lack of news isn't bad news for us, but good news instead, Li Jingming said in a unique way. Right. Now that junior brothers have said that, I feel much more at ease. Junior brother Lin will definitely be fine. Senior brother Ku Bai nodded repeatedly, paused for a moment, then turned to Lu Bianren and said, That's right, senior brother Lu. Now that the deadline for the mission has passed, let's first think of a way to cancel junior brother Lin and junior sister Huang's mission, lest they cause trouble when he returns in the future. That's fine too. I've met Jia Mufan a few times before. I'll go talk to him tomorrow. With junior brother Lin's status, it shouldn't be a problem. Lu Bianren nodded. No matter what, Lin Yi was a disciple of Shanghai Tianhua. Although there was no news of him now, with Jia Mufan's smooth and slick handling style, he should not make things difficult for such a small matter. While everyone was talking, the courtyard door was suddenly kicked open. Everyone's expression changed. They looked at the door and shouted angrily in unison. Who is it? Oh, I didn't expect it to be so lively here. Why are you guys hiding here so sneakily? Why don't you tell me? The newcomer glanced at everyone and immediately sneered with his nose in the air. This person was born with a golden complexion. His eyes habitually narrowed into slits, and there was an occasional ominous glint in the corner of his eyes. Intentionally or unintentionally, he constantly emitted a terrifying murderous aura, causing people to not dare to look him in the eye easily. Everywhere he passed, people would look at him. Those with a slightly weaker temperament would even be scared away on the spot, let alone confront him head-on. After seeing the person's appearance, the expressions of everyone in the courtyard immediately sank. This was especially so for senior brother Ku Bai and Xiao Ran. When they looked at this person, their expressions became as gloomy as water, and their eyes were spewing fire. There was no other reason. This person was called Ma Daoqiang. He used to be a new disciple of Blue Cloud Pavilion, but of course, he was no longer one. Ma Daoqiang, what are you doing here? Senior brother Ku Bai immediately said with a cold face. Although he was a timid and honest person, He had been the third pavilion master of Welcome Pavilion for a year, so he had more or less cultivated a bit of a superior aura. Moreover, facing this Ma Daoqiang, his heart was surging with anger. It was rare to see an honest person like him so angry. What am I doing here? I haven't asked you what you are doing here. From today onwards, this entire courtyard is mine. Ma Daoqiang sneered. As a new disciple of Blue Cloud Pavilion who had just graduated, he broke into the inner gate carelessly, not because he was muddle-headed, but because he was really full of confidence and had nothing to fear. Like Lin Yi, this Ma Daoqiang was this year's newcomer king, even better than Lin Yi. Now his name had spread throughout the 3 pavilions, and he was deeply valued by the higher-ups of Blue Cloud Pavilion. He had been regarded as the future hope of Blue Cloud Pavilion. All the miracles that Lin Yi had done back then, this guy had done them all. Not only did he do it, but he did it even better than Lin Yi. A few days ago, he had signed up for the intersect competition just like Lin Yi, and as a mere newbie, he was invincible in the intersect competition, sweeping all the way, and finally becoming the new king of the newcomers. What did you say? This courtyard belongs to you? Bullshit. Xiao Hongkai was instantly furious, pointing at Ma Daoqiang's nose and cursing. In the past year, he and Li Zhengming had been cultivating in the outer gate of Blue Cloud Pavilion, and did not go to the welcoming pavilion to stroll around, so he did not have much interaction with Ma Daoqiang. Although he had heard senior brother Ku Bai and Xiao Ran mention it, he had never really taken it to heart. In his heart, Lin Yi was a unique existence. Any random clown who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth wanted to surpass boss Lin Yi. There was simply something wrong with his brain. Now, he actually dared to unscrupulously snatch Lin Yi's residence, especially in front of everyone. This was intolerable. I hate people pointing at me the most. If you dare to point at me again, I will kill you. Ma Daoqiang looked at Xiao Hongkai with a cold expression. His whole body was filled with murderous intent, as if he would really explode and kill at any time. The prohibition of killing between the disciples of the 3 pavilions seemed to be nothing in his eyes. What? Kill me? All right, there's no time like the present. I've long heard that you, a new disciple, are arrogant and despotic. I didn't expect that hearing about you was really not as good as meeting you in person. Why don't you come and kill me now? Xiao Hongkai did not get angry but laughed instead. Not only did he not put down his finger, but his provocation became even stronger. He was a person with a real temper. Who cared if you were the newcomer king or not? No matter who dared to provoke him, he only had one response: fuck you. Chapter 4571. Senior brother Ku and Xiao Ran were shocked when they saw this. Their anger toward Ma Daoqiang was even greater than Xiao Hongkai's. After all, Xiao Hongkai had never interacted with Ma Daoqiang before. However, between the two of them, one was the 3rd pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion, and the other was the senior brother, who was in charge of the newcomers. They had been dealing with Ma Daoqiang for almost a whole year. The others might not have had an idea of how terrifying Ma Daoqiang, the new newcomer king, was, but the two of them were very clear about it. Originally, Lin Yi had pushed Ku Bai's senior brother to be the 3rd master of the Welcome Pavilion. That meant that he had a bright future ahead of him. Many second-generation practitioners with powerful backgrounds couldn't even hope to get that position. Moreover, he had a strong helper like Xiao Ran. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he didn't have to worry about anything. However, in reality, the two of them did not have a good time in the past year. Instead, they were bullied a lot. The other newcomers were fine, but the key was Ma Daoqiang. They could not suppress him at all, and they even had to be bullied by him. The situation was just like Meng Jiaguang, who was killed by Lin Yi. After all, this kind of thing was not honorable. Therefore, every time they met with Lu Bianren, Xiao Hongkai, and Li Zhengming, whether it was senior brother Ku or Xiao Ran, they did not deliberately mention Ma Daoqiang. In their minds, it would be fine after Ma Daoqiang entered Blue Cloud Pavilion. They did not expect this scene to suddenly happen. Ma Daoqiang was definitely not an ordinary newcomer. In terms of strength, he was even stronger than Lin Yi. Xiao Hongkai did not know his background. If she acted rashly, she would be at a great disadvantage. Senior brother Ku and Xiao Ran quickly wanted to remind Xiao Hongkai, but it was too late. This is what you said. Since you want to die, I will be merciful and send you on your way. Ma Dongqiang sneered and looked at Xiao Hongkai disdainfully. After saying that, he didn't make any special movements, but a crack suddenly appeared under his feet. The crack extended to Xiao Hongkai at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. Xiao Hongkai didn't even have time to react. He felt that there was nothing under his feet, and his whole body sank. Only his chest was exposed. As for the lower half of his body, he could not move. Even struggling was an extravagant hope. Watching this, Lu Bianren and the rest of the Clear Cloud Pavilion disciples were shocked, unable to conceal the shock on their faces. Although Xiao Hongkai had only joined the Clear Cloud Pavilion for a short period of time, his strength could not be considered weak when compared to all the other Clear Cloud Pavilion outer disciples. But in front of this Ma Daofa, he couldn't even block a single move, not to mention he didn't even know how this opponent attacked. It was too scary. Before anyone could react, Ma Dang's figure flashed, and in the next moment, he was already above Xiao Hongkai's head. He was only one step away from Xiao Hongkai, and he looked down at Xiao Hongkai with disdain. Even at this moment, Xiao Hongkai still maintained his previous posture, and pointed his finger at Ma Dang's nose. TSK, I heard that you are also Lin Yi's little brother. Why are you so weak? This is too disappointing. Like servant like master. It seems that this so-called newcomer king, Lin Yi, is only SOSO. Back then, Shanghai Tianhua had a whole new level of respect for him. It seems that I really made a mistake. Ha 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 ha. Ma Dongqiang laughed unscrupulously. He was the newcomer king, and Lin Yi was the previous newcomer king. They were only 1 year apart. Moreover, they were both newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Naturally, they would be compared in all aspects. This was inevitable. In his heart, Ma Dongqiang, Lin Yi, whom he had never met, had already been trampled on by him countless times. Otherwise, he would not have spent so much effort to break all the so-called records that Lin Yi had set. If not for the fact that he did not have the chance to fight with Lin Yi, he would have challenged Lin Yi a long time ago. And now, although he could not find Lin Yi, Lin Yi's little brother Xiao Hongkai had taken the initiative to come to him. Ma Dongqiang, of course, would not be polite. Fuck your mother's bullshit. There are only 2 people who can be praised by Pavilion Master Shangguan. One is Ramjia, and the other is me, Boss Lin Yi. Trash like you is not qualified at all. How dare you say that Pavilion Master Shangguan made a mistake? You're just lying to yourself. Although Xiao Hongkai was imprisoned and unable to move, the sun would rise from the west if he wanted to make him cower. What did you say? Ma Dongqiang, who was originally proud and arrogant, immediately darkened his face when he heard this. He thought that he was far above Lin Yi in all aspects. But until now, there was still no strength to support Lin Yi's argument. The reason was because of Shanghai Tianhua. In the beginning, when he obtained Shanghai Tianhua's approval, Lin Yi was naturally regarded as the second Ramjia. Ma Dongqiang, even if he was above Lin Yi in all aspects, even if he was invincible in the intersect competition, he still could not obtain Shanghai Tianhua's approval. This was an undeniable sore point. It was the only place where he was inferior to Lin Yi, and it was also the most taboo topic for him. Now that Xiao Hongkai said this in front of him, it was no less than exposing his scars in front of everyone. After being stepped on by him, he still dared to be so arrogant. Did he really think that Ma Dongqiang did not dare to kill him? I said that the grapes are sour because you can't eat them. What? Did I hit a sore spot just like that? Ha 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 ha. Xiao Hongkai laughed incessantly, as if he did not care about Ma Dongqiang at all. Even if he was under someone's control now, he could still laugh and scold as he wished. Lu Bianren, senior brother Ku Bai, and the others, seeing this, secretly applauded Xiao Hongkai's unyielding spirit. At the same time, they could not help but break out in a cold sweat for him. Now that Xiao Hongkai's life was in Ma Dongqiang's hands, if Ma Dongqiang went crazy, they would not be able to save him in time. The consequences would be unimaginable. Indeed, The three great pavilions had strict rules for fights between disciples. Unless it was a public battle, killing was absolutely not allowed. Violators would be severely punished. If Ma Dongqiang really killed Xiao Hongkai in a rage, he would definitely have to pay a heavy price. However, he was now a genius that the higher-ups of Blue Cloud Pavilion unanimously valued. Even if the price he had to pay was not small, it would not be to the point where it was unacceptable. Do you really think that I don't dare to kill you? A malevolent expression flashed across Ma Dongqiang's face. His eyes turned cold, and he suddenly stepped on Xiao Hongxai's hand. This hand had been pointed at him since he entered the room. Anyone who dared to challenge his bottom line should not think about having a good ending. Crack. The scalp-numbing sound of bones breaking rang out. Xiao Hongxai's face suddenly paled, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. Cold sweat poured down like rain, but he did not make a sound from beginning to end. The expressions of Lu Bianren and the others immediately changed. They could not help but want to attack Ma Dongqiang. Chapter 4572. Everyone could tell that Xiao Hongkai had broken at least 2 fingers, maybe even more. It's just a few fingers. This is just a small punishment for you. Who asked you to be so arrogant and disrespectful to me, the newcomer king? Ha 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 ha. Ma Dangshan laughed unscrupulously as he continued to crush Xiao Hongxai's fingers with his foot. He did not use any true qi. He wanted to use this kind of ordinary method to torture Xiao Hongkai bit by bit until he collapsed. However, Xiao Hongxai's performance greatly disappointed him. No matter how much unbearable pain he felt from his finger, this guy didn't even make a sound. He just stared coldly at Ma Duoduo. Lu Bianren and the others instantly spread out and surrounded Ma Dangshan. If it was not for the fact that Xiao Hongkai was being stepped on by him, they would definitely have made a move. As people of Lin Yi's faction, it could be said that they were bound together for good or bad. They would not stand by and watch Xiao Hongkai be killed. Oh, I didn't expect you to be a tough guy. Interesting. Ma Dang didn't pay any attention to Lu Bianren and the others who were glaring at him. He looked at Xiao Hongkai like a cat playing with a mouse and said with great interest, I'm actually not that murderous. If you know what's good for you, lower your head and admit your mistake, and sincerely call me Grandpa a few times. Maybe I'll be happy and spare your little life. That way, people won't say that I didn't give a chance to my fellow disciples. How about it? I'll count to 3. If you miss this opportunity, don't blame me. Call you Grandpa? What? You sound like you're ready to join our Qiao family? Ha 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 ha. Unfortunately, our Qiao family's threshold is too high. We only accept people and not dogs. I'm afraid you won't have this chance. Xiao Hongkai couldn't stop laughing. He didn't take the other party's threat to heart at all. It would be strange if he was afraid of Ma Dangshan's threat. 1. Ma Daoqiang's expression turned cold, and he used even more strength to stomp on the ground. He couldn't be bothered to argue with Xiao Hongkai, and immediately started counting. Lu Bianren and the rest felt their hearts clench. Killing intent erupted from their bodies. If they were to allow Xiao Hongkai to die in the hands of the other party, right under their noses, how would they be able to face Lin Yi in the future? At this moment, everyone only had the same thought in their minds. What bullshit, Rookie King. As long as he dared to kill Xiao Hongkai, even if he had to risk being severely punished by Blue Cloud Pavilion, he had to kill this bastard on the spot. 2. Ma Daoqiang continued counting. At the same time, he shot a disdainful glance at the murderous crowd. The trace of mockery in his eyes was obvious. Strictly speaking, the strength of the few present was not weak among the disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion. However, if they wanted to go against Ma Daoqiang with this little bit of strength, they were simply daydreaming. If these people dared to attack him, he wouldn't mind killing a few more people today. In for a penny, in for a pound, in for a pound. He might as well wipe out everyone in Lin Yi's faction. Let's see who still dares to say that he was inferior to Lin Yi. 3. I've already counted for you. If you want to kill me, hurry up and do it. Don't dawdle here. You're annoying me. Xiao Hongkai curled his lips in disdain. Right now he was being stepped on by the other party. He didn't have the ability to resist. If it was someone else, they might really be frightened by Ma Daoqiang. Unfortunately, he, Qiao Hongkai, had never known how the word death was written. What was there to be afraid of? You're really not afraid of death. Then I'll fulfill your wish. The killing intent in Ma Daoqiang's eyes intensified. At this moment, Qiao Hongsai's life was in his hands. Qiao Hongsai's life or death was completely in his hands. He didn't even need to move his finger. He could just send a wisp of true qi to ensure that Qiao Hongkai would die. Don't you dare! The one who spoke was not Qiao Hongkai. It was Lu Bianren, senior brother Kubai, Xiao Ran, and Li Jingming. No matter how cautious they were, since things had come to this, they had no choice but to make a move. They couldn't just watch as Qiao Hongkai was killed by Ma Daoqiang. If they couldn't stop him, they could only choose to bury Ma Daoqiang with him and avenge Qiao Hongkai. Otherwise, how would they have the face to face Lin Yi? The killing intent on the four of them soared, and they launched a surprise attack from 4 different directions. You're just a chicken and a stray dog. How dare you act so presumptuously in front of me? Ma Daoqiang didn't even look at the 4 of them. He looked at Qiao Hongkai beneath his feet, and his gaze grew even more ferocious. It was as if Lu Bianren and the other 3 were completely beneath his notice. They weren't even worth a second glance. Seeing Ma Daoqiang's fearless attitude, Lu Bianren and the other 3 were not happy. Instead, they were worried. Without hesitation, they used their strongest killing moves. Although it was a good thing for the 4 of them to underestimate their enemy, was it really so? What happened next explained why Ma Daoqiang was so dismissive towards them. There was no other reason. The difference in their strength was too great. They weren't even on the same level. Ma Daoqiang used the same method he used against Qiao Hongkai. For cracks suddenly appeared beneath Ma Daoqiang's feet, and he appeared beneath Lu Bianren and the other 3 at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. However, this time, he didn't try to trap the 4 of them. Instead, a sharp spike shot out from the crack. The 4 of them didn't even have the chance to react. Speed was the only thing that couldn't be broken. However, the 4 sharp spikes that were used against Lu Bianren and the other 3 were formed from extremely concentrated vital energy. At the same time, they were terrifyingly hard and frighteningly fast. This was a method that was made purely for killing people. Not only was it extremely hidden and sudden, it was also extremely effective. Without exception, Lu Bianren and the other 3 were hit by the sharp spikes at the same time. Although they didn't manage to dodge in time, Lu Bianren, Xiao Ran, and Li Jingming were not ordinary people. Although their strength was far inferior to their opponents, their reactions were fast. When they were hit by the spikes, they barely managed to avoid being hit in the vitals. However, a large piece of flesh was scraped off their bodies at the same time. Fresh blood dripped from their bodies. It was a ghastly sight. In contrast, senior brother Qiao Chong, who was much less talented, was not so lucky. Accompanied by a hoarse scream, the sharp spike pierced through his right thigh without any resistance. His whole body was brought up. Blood splattered everywhere as he hung upside down in the air. Because of the intense pain, he struggled. Because of the struggle, the spike pierced deeper and deeper, causing more and more pain. Everyone was so shocked by this scene that they couldn't move. Even the injuries on their bodies were forgotten. The spike was sharp at the top and wide at the bottom. If senior brother Qiao Chong continued to struggle, the wound on his thigh would only get bigger and bigger. In the end, his entire right leg would be broken. Chapter 4573. From Qiao Hongsai's point of view, it didn't matter if he died, but if he killed senior brother Ku Qian and the others because of him, even if he could live past today, he would live in the shadow of guilt for the rest of his life. Crack. Qiao Hongsai's eyes were bloodshot, and he bit down on Ma Daoqiang's foot like a madman. Even if he knew that his opponent was wearing a cowhide boot, even if he knew that it wouldn't hurt him at all, he didn't care. This was the only counterattack he could make right now. As long as he could make his opponent feel pain, it would be enough. If he could pierce through the cowhide boot and bite off half of his opponent's foot before he died, it would be worth it. Lu Bianren, Xiao Ran, and Li Jingming couldn't care about anything else. They hurriedly endured the pain and charged towards their senior brother Kubai, and they rushed to support him before his entire right leg was broken. Otherwise, once his leg was completely broken, even if he could live past today, he would become a complete cripple in the future, and his life would be worse than death. Ha 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 ha. So this is Lin Yi's underling? Such a weak mob. It seems that if it's not his eyesight that's wrong, then it's his own problem. Birds of a feather flock together, after all. Ma Daoqiang glanced sideways at everyone's pathetic state, and didn't choose to kill them immediately. Instead, he held his stomach and laughed wildly. Ever since he entered the welcoming pavilion for a year, Lin Yi's various legendary deeds had almost worn his ears out. If it wasn't for Lin Yi's absence, he would have long gone to find Lin Yi to determine who was the strongest newcomer king. But since he couldn't find the main culprit, it wasn't a bad idea to find Lin Yi's underlings to vent his anger. He had wanted to do something like this for a long time, but there hadn't been a suitable opportunity. Now that these people had taken the initiative to deliver themselves to his door, it couldn't be any better. Facing everyone's eyes that were spitting fire, as if they wanted to skin him alive, Ma Daoqiang didn't care at all. Instead, he laughed with great interest and said, "Don't be so nervous. I've said it before, although I have killed many people, my killing intent isn't that strong. Don't worry. I'm in a good mood today, so I won't kill you. However, you can escape death, but you can't escape punishment. I'm going to torture all of you until you're crippled. When that bullshit Lin Yi comes back, I'll have a good look at his expression, ha 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 ha." You. Everyone was so angry that they gnashed their teeth. They were outnumbered, but there was nothing they could do when facing this person. Just now, they had clearly distinguished the difference in strength between them. Even if there were twice as many of them, they still wouldn't be a match for Ma Daoguang, let alone the few of them. Among them, Lu Bianren's strength was the strongest. However, even he wasn't a match for his opponent. As for Xiao Ran and the other Foundation establishment stage experts, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. This was because their opponent, Ma Daofa, was an original infant stage expert, a newcomer to the Blue Cloud Pavilion, who had only joined the welcoming pavilion for a year, was actually a nascent soul expert. This kind of thing could be said to subvert everyone's view of cultivation in life, but this was the truth. Not long ago, during the inner court competition, it was confirmed in front of everyone. It was absolutely true. If not for this, Ma Daofa wouldn't have been able to sweep through the inner court competition that was filled with experts. Even in the end, when he faced a golden core perfected expert from the Soaring Sky Pavilion, it was still an easy kill. As an original infant stage expert, his strength was undoubtedly shown. It was said that at that time, everyone in the venue was shocked to the point of being dumbfounded. For the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, not a single person said a word. Although once one reached the original infant stage, they wouldn't be allowed to participate in the inner court competition. However, this was only for the official disciples of the inner court. Ma Daofa was only a newcomer at that time, so naturally, he wasn't included. As the bitter senior brother and Xiao Ran sucked in a breath of cold air, while enduring the intense pain, they exchanged glances with each other. Their eyes were filled with shock and helplessness. To them, the scene before them was not unfamiliar at all, because they had already experienced it many times. Among the people present, since Lu Bianren returned from the South Continent Sea, other than reporting to the higher-ups, he was in closed-door cultivation and rarely had any contact with the outside world. Li Jingming and Xiao Hongkai were both in the outer pavilion. They were also diligent in cultivation and rarely asked about the outside world. Only the two of them had the most contact with Ma Daofa, and only they truly knew how terrifying his strength was. However, in fact, when Ma Daofa first joined the welcoming pavilion, apart from being a little stubborn, he wasn't much different from the other newcomers of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. His initial strength was only at the heaven stage perfected, and they usually didn't see him make any special moves. However, after that, they didn't know what happened, but the feeling this guy gave them was that his strength had suddenly skyrocketed in a short period of time. From the original unknown heaven stage perfected, he suddenly became a high and mighty golden core perfected expert. After that, He even became an expert of the nascent soul stage. This kind of thing was completely unseen and unheard of. One must know that in the eyes of everyone, Linny was already a freak who leveled up so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. Even so, he still advanced step by step. Even if everyone was shocked, they could still accept it in the end. At most, they would say that this was the gap between a genius and an ordinary person. However, Ma Daofa was different. From the heaven stage perfected to the high and mighty nascent soul stage, the whole process only took a short period of time. It could be said that there were no signs at all. It was still acceptable to rise 3 levels in a night, but from the heaven stage perfected to the nascent soul stage, this covered 3 big realms. This wasn't a matter of ancestral graves emitting green smoke. This was simply a mushroom cloud exploding. Any seemingly unreasonable thing must have a reasonable explanation behind it. After senior brother Kubai and Xiao Ran were shocked by this scene, they soon found a reasonable explanation like others. That was from the beginning. Ma Daofa was a master of the nascent soul stage, but he had been hiding his strength for some reason. This was a reasonable explanation recognized by the public, and Ma Daofa himself was non-committal about it. He didn't admit it, but he also didn't deny it, so it was regarded as a tacit agreement. If Ma Daofa didn't say it himself, there was no real explanation for this matter. Everyone speculated about this guy's motive for hiding his strength, but in the end, it was just speculation. However, on the night Ma Daofa changed from the heaven stage perfected to the nascent soul stage, senior brother Kubai and Xiao Ran found an extremely unexpected oddity. In just one night, the Soaring Sky Pavilion, Profound Secrets Pavilion, and Clear Cloud Pavilion, the 3 great pavilions on the northern island, actually lost a number of disciples at the same time. The total number of people who died was more than 15. Moreover, each and every one of them was not weak, and some of them were even core disciples who were regarded as the hope of entering the inner court. Chapter 4574. Although there was no definite connection between these 2 incidents on the surface, because the time of occurrence was too close, any normal person would feel that there were many doubts. Therefore, after senior brother Kubai and Xiao Ran were puzzled, they immediately reported the situation of Ma Dafu to the Law Enforcement Hall, and let the masters of the Law Enforcement Hall personally intervene in the investigation. The Law Enforcement Hall acted very quickly. Almost as soon as they received the report, they took Ma Dafu away for investigation. However, unexpectedly, this investigation lasted for half a month, but there was no specific result. In the end, the Law Enforcement Hall Master Ramjia made the final decision. He said that the 15 disciples of the 3 pavilions who died that night all died of a unique emergency that had never been seen before. The source of the emergency needed to be further confirmed with the Dan Hall. However, all of this had nothing to do with Ma Dafu. Ma Dafu was just hiding his strength. Other than that, there was no violation of the rules. This was the final conclusion of Ramjia, so naturally no one would question it. Even though senior brother Kubai and Xiao Ran still felt a little strange, they did not dare to question it. Therefore, after Ma Dafu was locked up in the Law Enforcement Hall for half a month, he finally left unscathed. This matter was over. But since then, Ma Dafu changed his previous attitude of obscurity and began to become arrogant and do whatever he wanted. As an unprecedented nascent soul stage newcomer, it was simply a pipe dream for senior brother Kubai and Xiao Ran to want to control him with the strength of the foundation establishment stage. One was the 3rd pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, and the other was the great senior brother who was in charge of the newcomer. Not only could they not control Ma Dafu, the newcomer of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, but because of the previous report, they were hated by Ma Dafu. They were repeatedly bullied by Ma Dafu to the point that they could not step down in public. It could be said that they were humiliated. The other higher-ups of the welcoming pavilion, including the pavilion master Hu Yun, all looked on coldly and did not care. Even the higher-ups of the welcome pavilion had such an attitude. Needless to say, the Blue Cloud Pavilion situation was even worse. Whether it was senior brother Bitter or Xiao Ran, their only backer was Lin Yi. Now that Lin Yi wasn't around, it could be said that they didn't even have one person to rely on within the Blue Cloud Pavilion. Not only did the higher-ups of the Blue Cloud Pavilion not stand up for them, they even praised them and stood against them. With such a momentum, he would undoubtedly become the king of the newcomers, especially after he skipped the Outer Sanctum competition like Lin Yi did in the past, and directly displayed his splendor in the Inner Sanctum competition. It was said that the upper echelons of Blue Cloud Pavilion had unanimously recognized Ma Duanxiang as their future hope, and had even decided on him as the successor of Blue Cloud Pavilion. In terms of strength, the opponent was a nascent soul stage expert. In terms of status, the opponent was the successor of Blue Cloud Pavilion. No matter which one it was, the people present were far from being able to contend against Ma Duanxiang. It was obvious that they had fallen into a completely one-sided oppressive situation. Lu Bianren and the others had no way to deal with it, and could only passively take the beating. Looking at your posture, it seems that you have accepted your fate, right? Ma Duanxiang glanced at the crowd and sneered, "How boring. I thought that you would have a bit of backbone, but I didn't expect you to be so tactful. Or do you think that I will let you go just like that? Ha 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 ha, don't be too naive. Since I said that I will cripple all of you today, then I will absolutely not give you any discount. Let's just start with the one under my foot." As soon as he said that, Ma Duanxiang exerted a bit of force on his foot, and the crowd immediately heard the familiar, yet numbing sound of bones breaking. The hand that Xiao Hongkai had been stepped on had already lost all its fingers. It was very likely that there wasn't even a single finger left. Feeling the inhuman pain that shot straight up to his head, Xiao Hongkai's face instantly turned red, and the veins on his body bulged violently. However, he clenched his teeth tightly and didn't make a sound. His pair of bloodshot eyes stared fiercely at Ma Duanxiang as he spat out each word through gritted teeth. "You will pay the price. You will definitely pay the price. If you don't kill me today, in the future, I will return it to you 1,000 times over." I'm so scared." Ma Duanxiang purposely pretended to be afraid, and then laughed out loud. "Looks like I said something wrong just now. I shouldn't have said that you are boring. I should have said that you are very interesting. Today, I will not kill you. No matter how much you try to provoke me, it will be useless. But I will destroy your meridians one by one. I want to see how you bunch of useless people plan to seek revenge on me in the future. Ha 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 ha." Right at that moment, Xiao Ran and Li Jingming, who were not far away, suddenly attacked at the same time. Their speed instantly increased to the maximum, and it was impossible to tell that they had been seriously injured by the earth spike earlier. Once a cultivator's meridians were destroyed, they would become completely useless. They would rather fight to the death than watch Xiao Hongkai become a useless person, and they were even more unwilling to become a useless person themselves. Seeking death. Ma Duanxiang's eyes were filled with killing intent. Although he had said that he didn't want to kill anyone, but if these lowly ants were bent on seeking death, then he would not be merciful. It was just killing a few insignificant outer court disciples, and in his eyes, it was not even worth a fart. That earth spike just now was just a show of strength. Once he really wanted to kill, not a single person here would be able to escape. And now he was planning to start a massacre. With a single thought, Ma Duanxiang was about to unleash his killing technique. Xiao Ran and Li Jingming's speed was already extremely fast in the eyes of a normal person. But in the eyes of an original infant stage expert like him, they were as slow as a turtle crawling, weak to the point of being unable to withstand a single blow. With the sudden appearance of killing intent, Xiao Ran and Li Jingming's hearts were filled with alarm. However, the two of them did not stop their movements, and continued to advance forward. How could a person not be stabbed in the Jianghu? Even if they were to die, what was there to fear? Lu Bianren, senior brother Ku Bai, and Xiao Hongkai's eyes were bloodshot when they saw this scene. Seeing that the two of them were about to be the first to die, a cool breeze suddenly swept across the field, and without any warning, a figure suddenly appeared. He said indifferently, "Killing is but a small matter. You have no enmity with them. Why do you want to cause trouble for yourself, junior brother Ma? Everyone was stunned. Even the unbridled Ma Duanxiang couldn't help but narrow his eyes when he saw this person's appearance. This person was the eldest senior brother, who managed the inner court of Blue Cloud Pavilion, Jia Mufan. With Ma Duanxiang's original infant stage strength, he could treat anyone here as if they were grass. He could kill or cripple them as he pleased, but when facing this Jia Mufan, even he had to restrain himself. Not only was this because Jia Mufan was the eldest senior brother who managed the inner court, but also because Jia Mufan also had the strength of an original infant stage, and was even stronger than him. Senior brother Jia, these people gathered in my courtyard without permission. I don't know what they are plotting. Shouldn't you punish them? Ma Duanxiang was stunned for a moment, then returned to normal, and looked at Lu Bianren and the others with a cold smile. Chapter 4575. Jia Mufan swept his gaze across the crowd and saw that no one was uninjured, especially senior brother Ku Bai and Xiao Hongkai. He furrowed his brows and said, "Apart from a duel, it's strictly forbidden for fellow disciples to kill each other. This is the iron rule of the three great pavilions, and no one can defy it. Junior brother Ma, although you haven't been in the sect for long, I hope you'll keep this in mind. Otherwise, it won't be a good thing for you or the entire Blue Cloud Pavilion. Moreover, they've already paid the price. Going too far is as bad as falling short. I advise you to stop, junior brother Ma." "Fine. Very well. Since senior brother Jia has spoken, I will give you face and let these reckless ants go for now. However, if they fall into my hands again next time, don't blame me for not showing any mercy," said Jia Xiu coldly. Ma Daoqiang stared deeply at Jia Mufan, then slowly removed his foot from Qiao Hongsai's hand with a sinister smile. "Oh right, remember to arrange a duel in advance next time." Gasp. Everyone looked at Qiao Hongsai's hand, which had been trampled beyond recognition, and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Even though they had seen many battles, they had never known that a hand could be trampled into such a bloody mess. At this moment, they couldn't even see the outline of a hand. Xiao Hongkai hadn't made a single sound from beginning to end. This fellow was truly unimaginably unyielding. Xiao Ran and Li Jingming, who were the closest to him, exchanged glances. While guarding against Ma Daoqiang's every move, they hurriedly rescued Xiao Hongkai from the human-shaped pit. Then, they slowly retreated to Lu Bianren and senior brother Ku Bai's side. They were bound by a common enemy. "The few of you should leave. From today onwards, this place belongs to junior brother Ma. Don't come here again, lest you bring trouble upon yourself," Jia Mufan said slowly to the crowd. "What? This is junior brother Lin's residence? How can he give it to someone else?" Lu Bianren and the rest were shocked. They thought Ma Daoqiang was just looking for trouble. They didn't expect it to be true. "Junior brother Lin? You mean that bullshit Lin Yi? Ha 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 ha. After disappearing for more than a year, I don't even know if he's dead or alive. How could he have the cheek to occupy the toilet without taking a shit? This is the best residence in the inner sect of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Since I've seen it, it's mine. Could it be that you still dare to have any objections?" Ma Daoqiang laughed complacently. Seeing that Lu Bianren and the others were boiling with rage, Jia Mufan couldn't help but sigh inwardly. He signaled with his eyes to stop them and said, "There's an inside story to this matter. I'll explain it clearly to you. You'd better follow me out first." Jia Mufan walked up to Lu Bianren's group and nodded slightly at Lu Bianren. Then, he took the lead and walked out the door. Everyone's gazes landed on Lu Bianren. Now that Lin wasn't here, Lu Bianren was the leader of the group. He could leave or stay as he pleased. If the leader had been Xiao Hongkai, he would definitely have fought to the death today. He would not have hesitated even if he had to die here. However, Lu Bianren was different. He was not so hot-tempered. He was more considerate of the bigger picture. Where there's life, there's hope. It wasn't wise to stay here knowing that they couldn't win. Moreover, if they did that, even Jia Mufan, the eldest senior brother who came to mediate the situation, would be offended. If he offended them, the consequences would be unimaginable. All right, let's go. Lu Bianren took a deep breath and took the lead to follow Jia Mufan. Although the others were unwilling, they knew that this was the best choice. They glared at Ma Daoqiang before leaving. Haha, what a bunch of cowards. Ma Daoqiang laughed smugly at the back. Oh right. I forgot to tell you that I'm about to become the second senior brother of Blue Cloud Pavilion's intersect manager. Although I don't take in useless people, I'll leave a few positions for you since you're the former newcomer king's underlings. If you know what's good for you, come and join me. Otherwise, you won't be so lucky next time. Lu Bianren and the others looked at each other. They couldn't be bothered to argue with this bastard. They sneered in their hearts. Next time? Humph. The next time will be the time for you to pay with your blood. The group walked out of the main door with a heavy atmosphere. Lu Bianren suddenly stopped and said to Jia Mufan, Senior brother Jia, can you tell us what's going on now? How did junior brother Lin's residents become that bastards? Jia Mufan stopped and glanced at everyone's faces. He sighed and said, Actually, junior brother Ma had already taken a liking to this place on the second day, after the inner disciple competition ended. He came to me to ask for it, but I rejected him on the spot because it's junior brother Lin's place. What happened after that? Lu Bianren and the others frowned. Since then he came to me a few more times, but I made excuses every time. I might as well tell you the truth. Although I'm not very familiar with junior brother Lin, and we can't be considered friends, he's someone who's valued by both Pavilion Master Shengguan and Pavilion Master Yu. As the eldest senior brother who manages the inner sect, why would I offend junior brother Lin for this kind of thing? Jia Mufan said sincerely. Everyone nodded successively, and the gazes they shot at Jia Mufan had obviously become much friendlier. They were able to discern that he was speaking the truth. Moreover, with his identity as the eldest senior brother that managed the inner court, it was extremely difficult for him to be willing to speak such heartfelt words to them. Needless to say, this fellow really had a way of handling matters. If that's the case, how did it still fall into his hands? Lu Bianren and the others looked at each other. Jia Mufan was the one who had the power to allocate the cave residences for the intersect disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion. If he rejected it, would Ma Jingyang dare to snatch it from him without a valid reason? You might not know this, but junior brother Ma's position in the intersect of Blue Cloud Pavilion is no longer lower than mine. Many of the higher-ups of Blue Cloud Pavilion think highly of him. He's determined to win this time. He found a few pavilion elders to support him and forcefully put the residents under his name in the Elders' Council of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Therefore, there's nothing I can do. Jia Mufan shrugged helplessly. Damn it. This is too much. Everyone was filled with righteous indignation. If Lenny was still here, they believed that even the elders of Blue Cloud Pavilion would not dare to do such a thing. After all, offending Lin Yi was equivalent to slapping Shanghai Tianhua in the face. Even Yu Jinyang, the pavilion master of Blue Cloud Pavilion, would not dare to do such a thing, let alone the elders. Chapter 4576. Not to mention, without Lin Yi's permission, even if Shengguan Tianhua knew about it, he wouldn't be able to interfere. After all, this was Clear Cloud Pavilion's internal affairs. Although this powerful soaring sky pavilion lord didn't really care about public opinion, he rarely broke the rules, and he wouldn't interfere with other pavilions' trivial matters. This is the decision of the internal elders of Blue Cloud Pavilion. I can only act according to the rules. I originally planned to delay the delivery to 3 days later, which is just the right time to communicate with the few of you. However, I did not expect to receive a message from junior brother Ma right after I received the order from the higher-ups, saying that he was already here to receive it. That's why I rushed over. I did not expect to see you guys like this. Sigh. Jia Mufan let out a long sigh and patted Lu Bianren's shoulder. He said to the crowd with a face full of shame, It was my thoughtlessness that caused you guys to suffer. Senior brother Jia, you don't have to blame yourself. What happened today is between us and Ma Daoqiang. It has nothing to do with you. We will remember your kindness, Lu Bianren said immediately. The others nodded in unison. What happened today had already caused them to fight to the death with Ma Daoqiang. There was no possibility of reconciliation from now on. No matter what, it's because I came late that caused you guys to suffer. It just so happens that I have a good relationship with the person in charge of medicine in the pill hall. I will bring you guys to treat your injuries. I guarantee that there will not be any sequelae. Jia Mufan took the initiative to say. Lu Bianren looked at Xiao Hongkai and senior brother Kubai. His injuries were still manageable. As long as they applied some good medicine, they would recover quickly without going to the pill hall. However, these two were different. Xiao Hongkai's hand was already beyond recognition, and senior brother Kubai's right leg was almost broken. If they did not receive treatment as soon as possible, there would be big problems. In that case, thank you for your kindness, senior brother Jia. Lu Bianren did not decline. Treating his injuries was the most important thing now. Owing a favor for this was not a big deal. He just had to find an opportunity to return it in the future. Don't mention it. This is my duty as a senior brother. There's no need to thank me. Jia Mufan waved his hand. He immediately led everyone to the medical hall. As he walked, he asked, "Oh right, is there still no news from junior brother Lin?" "Not yet. Ever since I parted ways with him in the South Continent Sea, I haven't heard from him again." Lu Bianren and the others said gloomily. If Linny was here, how could he allow a clown like this to act as a spear? Even at the very least, he would be able to ensure everyone's safety, and they wouldn't end up in such a miserable state. Don't worry, junior brother Lin. You must have faith in junior brother Lin. He'll come back safely. Jia Mufan smiled as he consoled her. That's right, junior brother Lin will definitely be safe, definitely. Lu Bianren nodded heavily. Hearing the two of them say so, the others finally felt a little better. Pausing, Lu Bianren suddenly thought of something and asked Jia Mufan. Senior brother Jia, junior brother Lin and junior sister Huang received a mission to capture the evil cultivator, Wu Baoliang. News of Wu Baoliang being killed on the spot has already spread, so please take some time to cancel their mission. Yes, this is my duty. Don't worry. Jia Mufan agreed readily without hesitation. Thank you, senior brother Jia. Lu Bianren and the others nodded gratefully. They thought to themselves, thank goodness this intersect steward is easy to talk to. Otherwise, not only would they not be able to pass today, they might even have to go through a lot of trouble to cancel the mission. If this kind of mission was left hanging and not cancelled, it would greatly affect the future missions and a series of other matters. It might even affect Lin Yi's long-term development in Blue Cloud Pavilion. After all, strictly speaking, this was a stain that was neither too big nor too small. He brought Lu Bianren and the others to the pill hall. With Jia Mufan's identity, he naturally received special treatment. After all, he was the Clear Cloud Pavilion's eldest senior brother, who was in charge of the inner sanctum. He was destined to have a bright future ahead of him. Even though he came from the Clear Cloud Pavilion, no one dared to slight him. The Dan Hall immediately sent out the best doctors to treat everyone's injuries. As everyone only had some superficial injuries, apart from Xiao Hongkai and senior brother Kubai, who were more troublesome and needed to stay for treatment, Lu Bianren and the others could quickly return to their respective homes. However, Jia Mufan stayed with them from morning till night. It was rare for someone of his status to have such patience. If it was Lin Yi, it would not be strange for Jia Mufan to do this. However, the status of Lu Bianren and the others was worlds apart from him. Jia Mufan was still able to do this. It was evident that this person was not simple. Even if his nascent soul stage strength was disregarded, his temperament alone was destined to be extraordinary. He would definitely achieve great things in the future. Thank you, senior brother Jia, for today's matter. We will engrave it in our hearts and never dare to forget it. Lu Bianren brought Xiao Ran and Li Jingming with him, and the three of them bowed deeply to Jia Mufan. You're too polite. It's nothing. It's not worth mentioning. Jia Mufan smiled. Before he left, he said, there's one thing I hope you'll bear in mind. Don't make unnecessary sacrifices. Before junior brother Lin returns, don't provoke junior brother Ma. With his current status, if he really wants to kill you, to be honest, it would be in vain. That's all I have to say. Take care. The three of them looked at Jia Mufan's receding figure in silence. After a moment of silence, Xiao Ran suddenly asked, Senior Brother Lu, do you think there's a deeper meaning behind Senior Brother Jia helping us so much? I also think it's a little strange. Although Senior Brother Jia has always been smooth and slick, he's still the eldest senior brother in charge of the inner sect. It's fine that he helped us out just now, but he actually personally sent us to the pill hall to treat our injuries. To be honest, even I didn't expect this. Lu Bianren shook his head in confusion. Every action of a big shot must have a deeper meaning, and Jia Mufan was undoubtedly a big shot. There must be a reason for his actions. It's just that everyone couldn't see through it for the time being. In my opinion, Senior Brother Jia has a big plan. He's really someone with a long-term vision. Today I've learned something new, Li Zhengming said thoughtfully. Oh, why do you say that? Zhengming, tell us quickly. Lu Bianren and Xiao Ran were stunned and asked hurriedly. From today's incident, although Senior Brother Jia is smooth and slick, and doesn't seem to have offended Ma Daoqiang, I'm afraid he's already made a decision based on how he protected us, and especially personally sent us to the pill hall. Li Zhengming said slowly. Choice? You mean? Lu Bianren and Xiao Ran fell into deep thought at the same time. Chapter 4577. They're both geniuses who can impress the higher-ups of Blue Cloud Pavilion. When they grow up, they'll definitely influence the overall situation. However, it's precisely because the two of them are so similar that it can't be two tigers on the same mountain. Ma Mufan deliberately causing trouble for us today is proof of that. So when Boss Linny returns, everyone, including Jia Mufan, will have to make a decision in time to support Ma Mufan or Boss Linny. Li Zhengming became more and more certain as he spoke. In other words, Jia Mufan has already decided to support Boss Linny? Xiao Ran's heart skipped a beat. This was a rare piece of good news. After all, Jia Mufan was a truly important figure in Blue Cloud Pavilion. His status was even higher than some of the elders of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Looks like it. Lu Bianren nodded, but then he asked doubtfully. But why would he make such a choice? If he waited for Junior Brother Lin to return, it wouldn't be strange for him to make such a choice. But now that Junior Brother Lin's life is uncertain, isn't he afraid of angering that arrogant and despotic Majua? I think he's betting on something other than Boss Lin Yi, but someone else, Li Zhengming said in a low voice. Who is that? Lu Bianren and Xiao Ran asked at the same time. The Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master, Shengguan Tianhua. Li Zhengming's answer was shocking. However, when they thought about it carefully, they found that it made sense. Everyone in the three great pavilions knew that Lin Yi had a close relationship with Shanghai Laner. What's more, he was a genius that Shanghai Tianhua had personally appointed. So basically, everyone automatically added the two words Shengguan to Lin Yi's name. This could also be understood as offending Lin Yi was offending Shanghai Tianhua. And expressing goodwill to Lin Yi was expressing goodwill to Shanghai Tianhua. According to your analysis, Zhengming, Senior Brother Jia really has a big plan. But then again, Senior Brother Jia, if even someone like him can't sit in that position, then I'm afraid no one in the world can. Lu Bianren sighed with emotion. Xiao Ran nodded, although he didn't say it out loud. They already knew what Jia Mufan wanted to do. Under normal circumstances, a senior disciple, who was in charge of the inner sanctum of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, would not have any interaction with Shanghai Tianhua, the pavilion master of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. However, there was one exception, and that was when he had set his sights on the position of the pavilion master of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. According to the rules passed down from their ancestors, anyone who wanted to be the cabinet master of any of the three pavilions must pass the decision of the North Island elders, especially the support of the cabinet masters of the other two pavilions. Not a single one could be omitted. Based on Jia Mufan's current strength and status, although he was still far from the position of Clear Cloud Pavilion's pavilion lord, based on his experience, when his strength reached a certain level, it wasn't impossible for him to fight for the position. Jia Mufan was planning for a rainy day. Lu Bianren Xiao Ran. and Li Zhengming left after a long discussion. With their current strength and level, they were still far away from Jiamufan, let alone the position of the pavilion master of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. No matter what, Jiamufan's choice was a good thing for them. After all, it was equivalent to having a strong ally. What they needed to do next was to recuperate and cultivate well, waiting for Lin Yi to come back. An eye for an eye. 5 Poisons Swamp South Island. Stepping on the broad back of the 5 Evils dragon, Lin Yi had been cultivating surrounded by the murderous aura of the 5 elements for more than 3 months, just like before. Recently, Lin Yi gradually found that the effect of the murderous aura of the 5 elements on his cultivation was constantly weakening. At least, it was not as fast as it was at the beginning. At the same time, the result of the 3 months cultivation was Lin Yi's strength had successfully broken through from the early stage of the nascent soul realm to the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul realm. He only leveled up 1 level in 3 months. This progress was obviously much slower than before, but it was still very gratifying. First, Lin Yi did not take any elixirs during the process. It was a pure breakthrough which was commendable. Second, the higher the level, the more difficult it was to make a breakthrough. Naturally, it would take a longer time. This was an eternal truth. For ordinary people, it would take dozens of years for a golden core stage expert to level up. Once they reached the original infant stage, this time span would be more than 100 years. It was normal for most original infant stage experts not to level up for hundreds of years. In comparison, Lin Yi was able to level up 1 level in just 3 months. This in itself was already very impressive. Lin Yi was not a greedy person, but this was a rare opportunity. Merely reaching the peak of the early nascent soul stage was not enough to satisfy him. He had to continue cultivating and continue to break through. However, if he wanted to level up, the murderous aura of the 5 elements in this place was not enough. Lin Yi immediately said to the 5 Evils dragon, "Go up a little more. I need stronger murderous aura of the 5 elements." "I'm afraid that's not possible," the 5 Evils dragon said. "Why? Could it be that even you can't withstand the murderous aura of the 5 elements?" Lin Yi was stunned. However, after thinking about it carefully, he realized that this was not possible. Previously, the 5 Evils dragon was swimming freely in the swamp. Even though the murderous aura was densely packed in the middle layer, the murderous aura of the 5 elements was not a threat to it at all. Instead, the murderous aura of the 5 elements scared it away. "Of course I can. However, even if I go up, it will be of no use to you." The 5 Evils dragon shook its head and said, "What do you mean?" Lin Yi was confused. Right now, he needed even stronger murderous aura of the 5 elements to aid in his cultivation. This didn't even require him to go up to the middle layer. All he had to do was fly up a little bit. How could it be of no use to him? Roar, roar. Even if I explain it to you like this, you won't understand. You'll understand when you go up. As soon as the 5 Evils dragon finished speaking, it flapped its wings and flew up a little bit. Then it stopped. Although it hadn't reached the middle layer, the murderous aura of the 5 elements around it was much stronger and more numerous than before. Lin Yi was quite satisfied. However, just as he was about to start cultivating, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. He couldn't help but cry out in surprise. How could this be? Before this, all the murderous auras of the 5 elements that Lin Yi had encountered, regardless of whether they were strong or weak, were single-minded. Basically, as long as they sensed Lin Yi's aura, and as long as Lin Yi didn't use his primary energy to cover his body, they would immediately attack. Unless Lin Yi escaped or the murderous aura of the 5 elements gradually dissipated in the process, they would definitely not stop until one of them died. Chapter 4578. However, when the dragon of 5 evils brought him up, they all fled in all directions. Even the 5 elements killing aura in the distance automatically avoided them and did not attack him. Scentpound the 5 elements killing aura is also intelligent. Although they are not afraid of you, they are afraid of me. So they automatically escaped. The dragon of 5 evils laughed. But before they attacked me, Lenny could not help but feel strange. That's because they're too weak, so they don't have enough intelligence. Basically, they're like brainless fools. However, this 5 elements killing aura is different. The stronger the pressure, the stronger their intelligence, and the more they know what's good for them. After sensing my presence, they naturally avoided me. As for me, I couldn't completely hide my presence here, so I avoided you as well. The 5 elements killing aura explained. So you're saying that the weaker 5 element auras were too weak? They didn't dare to attack you, but they dared to attack me? Lenny said, understanding what was going on. Yes, that's what I mean. The dragon of 5 evils nodded. This is really. Lenny was speechless. The 5 elements killing aura was not a living thing, but it had a certain degree of intelligence. Previously, he thought it was very strange and eye-opening. But now, he could only smile bitterly. The 5 elements killing aura did not need to reproduce. Why did they need such a strong intelligence? With the help of the dragon of 5 evils, Lenny thought he could completely use the 5 elements killing aura. He thought he could simply cultivate in seclusion here for a few years. If he took a few gathering nascent golden pills, he might be able to reach the peak of the nascent soul realm. Now everything was just like the moon in the mirror. It didn't matter how strong the 5 elements were here, or how strong the pressure was. It was useless to him if they didn't attack him at all. If only he could fly, he wouldn't need the dragon to carry him. Unfortunately, this was purely an extravagant hope. What now? Do we still go to that place to cultivate? The dragon of 5 evils asked. Forget it, let's go down first. Lenny sighed. Although the effect of cultivation in that place was better than usual, it was not as obvious as before. This feeling was like a person who was used to riding in a rocket had suddenly become an airship. He could not help but feel dull and somewhat disappointed. All right then. The dragon of 5 evils nodded and lowered its body to the ground. It had been cultivating with Lin Yi for 3 whole months, and even it was beginning to feel bored. He returned to the ground. Lin Yi's face was gloomy as he sighed helplessly. I can't get out, I can't cultivate, and there's nothing to do in this place. It's really a pain in the ass. He could clearly see the incomparably powerful 5 elemental killing chi when he raised his head. But because he couldn't fly, he couldn't use it to cultivate. This feeling of guarding a treasure mountain, without being able to do anything really made him speechless. Before he encountered the 5 diabolical dragons, even if he couldn't cultivate, he could at least explore this place. However, now that he knew that this was the nest of the 5 poison dragon and the dragon of 5 evils, there was naturally no need to explore this place anymore. Not to mention the fact that he couldn't find anything good. Even if he was lucky enough to come across something, Lenny would not be able to just take it for himself. After all, in theory, the owner of this place was the dragon of 5 evils. Everything in this underground space belonged to it. If it was another spirit beast, Lenny naturally wouldn't feel any guilt snatching it. However, he was an old friend of the dragon of 5 evils. Lenny never had the habit of snatching treasures from his friends. Moreover, the dragon of 5 evils had specially accompanied him to cultivate for so long. If he still wanted to take something from it, he would be too inhumane. Therefore, to avoid embarrassment, Lenny simply gave up on the idea of exploring around. Being trapped here without being able to do anything felt like being imprisoned. No matter who it was, they would feel frustrated and depressed. Even someone as calm as Lin Yi was no exception. At this moment, the dragon of 5 evils suddenly said, Actually, that might not be the case. Could it be that you have a way to prevent the 5 elemental killing aura from escaping? Lin Yi's spirit was instantly lifted. If he could continue to cultivate smoothly, based on his previous progress, it wouldn't be long before he could reach the middle stage of the original infant stage. If his strength really reached that stage, Lenny would have enough confidence to face the West Mountain Elder. Although he wouldn't be able to face the Elder directly, at least he would have the ability to protect himself. He wouldn't be in such a precarious situation like before. Especially with the help of the ghostly thing, Lenny was confident that he would be able to escape. Perhaps even more. I didn't think about that. The 5 elemental killing aura is actually more sensitive than any human cultivator or spirit beast. If I completely conceal my presence, I might have a chance to deceive them. However, once I move, there's definitely no chance. The dragon of 5 evils shook its head. What do you mean by not necessarily? Lenny grinned in disappointment. I'm not necessarily talking about cultivation. I'm talking about whether or not you can get out. The dragon of 5 evils looked at Lin Yi's depressed expression and smiled. Get out? How? Lin Yi's eyes lit up, and he asked hurriedly. Anyway, continuing to cultivate here wouldn't have much effect. At this time, if there was a way to get out, he wouldn't have any regrets. It had been almost a year and a half since he left the North Island. Such a long time had passed without him noticing. To be honest, he really missed his senior and junior brothers, and was worried about whether they had encountered any trouble. Now you know that there are 2 entrances and exits in this place. You definitely don't have to try the one in the hinterland of the South Island. After all, you might have been blacklisted by the Spirit Beast clan. That place is too dangerous for you. However, I think you can try the one you came in before. After all, such a long time has passed. Maybe their spies have withdrawn, the dragon of 5 evils said after thinking for a while. All right. Lenny suddenly patted his head excitedly. He didn't think of this, because he was closely involved in the situation. No matter how cautious and suspicious the Elder of West Mountain was, people always had limited patience. It was already ridiculous for the Elder of West Mountain to send people to guard the Swamp of 5 Poisons, a place of certain death. For him to fall into such a place as the Swamp of 5 Poisons. Now that more than half a year had passed, they should have given up long ago. After all, they didn't know that there was such a treasure land below, let alone that Lin Yi could avoid the attack of the 5 elemental killing aura. Chapter 4579. Is there any other way? Is there a third entrance and exit? Then why don't you tell me directly? Lenny hurriedly asked. To tell you the truth, there really is a third entrance and exit in this place, but I have never been to this entrance and exit. It's just that my master, the 5 Poisons Flood Dragon, mentioned it before his death. It doesn't seem to have been there, and there is no exact information related to it. So I don't know what the situation outside this entrance, and how dangerous it is. Unless you have to, I don't recommend you to take this risk. The dragon of 5 evils shook its head. I see. That's equivalent to a complete gamble. It's really too risky. Lenny pondered for a moment and nodded. After all, this place was located under the South Island. So according to common sense, the third entrance and exit, like the other 2, was very likely to be in the South Island, or even in the hinterland of another South Island. If Lenny went out rashly, he would be walking into a trap, and the risk he had to take was not small at all. So I didn't tell you before, lest you go to die. How about it? I'm very kind, right? Roar. The dragon of 5 evils laughed. Very kind. Then I'll go to the 5 Poisons Swamp to have a look first. If there are still people guarding it, then even if it's risky, I can only give it a try. After Lenny said that, he immediately jumped on the back of the spirit bird. 1 man and 1 bird instantly soared into the sky, and almost in the blink of an eye, they came to the surface of the 5 Poisons Swamp. Lin Yi's heart sank as he scanned the area with the goddamn thing's consciousness. This West Mountain Elder still hadn't removed his eyes? This was far beyond stubbornness, he was sick in the head. Lin Yi was about to go crazy at this moment, and he was full of dirty words. But in fact he really blamed the West Mountain Elder wrongly this time, as he had speculated before. Even if the West Mountain Elder was cautious and suspicious, he had already determined that he would die after such a long time. The reason why he didn't remove the spies was actually very simple. He had forgotten, Ling Yi was already dead. This was what the West Mountain Elder was thinking. As an evil cultivator, he naturally wouldn't care about a dead person. Thus, he naturally threw Lin Yi to the back of his mind. He even completely forgot about the spies that Long Kiba had planted in the 5 Poison Swamp. If the dignified West Mountain Elder cared about these dragon boat escorts, who couldn't even be considered as minions, then the sun would rise from the west. Since West Mountain's Elder Sect Master didn't say anything, Long Kiba naturally didn't dare to withdraw his people. To him, It was just a matter of losing 2 escorts. It didn't matter at all. It was even more impossible for him to bother the West Mountain Elder over such a small matter. To Long Kiba, as long as he didn't urge him to find some nascent soul female cultivator, everything would be fine. So what if he sent out a few escorts? As a result, the escorts under him became the unlucky ones. Even though they knew it was pointless, they could only come here on time, and did not dare to slack off. They, the minions, were just unlucky. As for Lin Yi, the person involved, he was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. From the complaints of the 2 people above him, he already knew the cause and effect. He almost vomited blood on the spot. They were obviously negligent. In the end, he couldn't move because of a freak combination of factors. How could he explain this? Lin Yi forcibly restrained himself for a long time. Finally, he barely restrained the idea of killing the 2 spies. Don't look at the perfunctory attitude of these 2 people. But once they felt danger, they would immediately crush the sensing jade tablet. At that time, even if the West Mountain Elder had already forgotten about him, he would definitely remember this matter when he saw the jade tablet shatter. With Lin Yi's current strength at the peak of the early nascent soul stage, facing the West Mountain Elder, he didn't have much confidence in escaping unscathed. Even if he escaped back to the 5 Poisoned Swamp and left the West Mountain Elder helpless, this would expose the key information that he could survive in the 5 Poisoned Swamp. When the time came, the West Mountain Elder would definitely not rest until he was dead. It would be even more impossible for him to escape from here. This was a risk that Lin Yi couldn't take. So after weighing the pros and cons, he could only resentfully ride the spirit bird back down to the underground space. It seems that we can't get out from here. How about it? Do you want to try the 3rd passage? Seeing Lin Yi's unlucky expression from afar, the 5 Demons Dragon didn't need to ask to know the result. Of course, otherwise we will be trapped here alive. I really have to give it to that old monster. Even an unintentional mistake can force me to be unable to move. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. If the West Mountain Elder hadn't forgotten about him at this time, then it might be possible to remove the spy after a period of time. But now that he had forgotten about it, he wouldn't take the initiative to think about it in the future. Long Kiba and the others wouldn't dare to bother him with such a trivial matter. It was very likely that even after 8 to 10 years, he would still be like this. There was no hope at all. The 5 Demons Dragon was stunned for a moment. After listening to Lin Yi's explanation, it suddenly laughed forward and back. It lay on the ground and madly slapped the ground with its claws. For a time the earth shook. I say, can you at least restrain yourself a little? You don't have to show your schadenfreude so vividly, right? You're about to cause an earthquake. Lin Yi squinted his eyes and said speechlessly, if an earth-opening stage existence really let loose and destroyed, the entire space would probably collapse. Just the 5 Demons Dragon's smile alone caused cracks to appear. It really couldn't withstand its torment. Roar, 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 roar. This is the funniest joke I've heard in 2 years. You're really unlucky, it's too funny. The 5 Demons Dragon was still laughing unscrupulously. It was obviously a dinosaur, but Lin Yi stared blankly at it, laughing until tears came out of its eyes. In the past 2 years, you've only seen me, a human. You haven't even met a ghost. It would be strange if you could hear a joke. Lin Yi speechlessly cursed for a while. He waited for the 5 Demons Dragon to stop laughing, then urged it to lead the way to the 3rd entrance. Although this space was vast and boundless, with the speed of the 5 Fiends Dragon, it could cover any distance in an instant. Although the spirit bird's speed was not as terrifying as the 5 Fiends Dragon's, a nascent soul spirit bird's speed in the outside world was enough to make one's hair stand on end. After flying for a while, the 5 Demons Dragon suddenly landed in front of them. Lin Yi thought that they had reached their destination, so he hurriedly let the spirit bird land. However, he discovered that everything around him was the same as before. It didn't seem like there was an entrance at all. Chapter 4580. Could this be? Lin Yi looked at the Dragon of 5 Evils. According to the Dragon of 5 Evils, its master, the 5 Poison Flood Dragon, was the only other person in this space. However, he was already dead. That's right, this is my master's grave. The dragon of 5 evils nodded. It had been laughing uncontrollably at Lin Yi's embarrassing encounter. But now, it seemed to be deeply sad. This answer was within Lin Yi's expectations. Now that he had confirmed it, he couldn't help but feel deep respect for it. Although he had never interacted with the 5-poison flood dragon, it was still a super spiritual beast that had once stood at the peak. This was a form of respect for a powerhouse, especially since it still had such a terrifying aura after its death. One could only imagine how powerful it was when it was alive. Lin Yi sighed inwardly. If it wasn't for the vermilion bird, this 5-poison serpent would have become the new Azure Dragon Elder. That was a supreme existence that stood at the top of Sky-class Island. But now, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Everything had turned to dust. Why don't you set up a dragon grave for it? It doesn't even have a proper tombstone. How can it rest in peace after its death? The ghostly thing suddenly emerged from Lin Yi's body and spoke to the dragon of 5 evils sternly. The lingering aura of this place was the reason for the 5-poison flood dragon's lingering obsession. In this case, even if the 5-poison flood dragon was dead, it would never be able to escape. It could only sink in its endless obsession and resentment for all eternity. This was the most lamentable outcome for a member of the dragon clan. Senior Ghost, I also want to set up a dragon grave for my master. However, my master told me before he died that unless I set up a tombstone with the vermilion bird's bone, he wouldn't be able to die in peace. This was my master's last wish. I didn't dare to disobey it. The dragon of 5 evils said with bloodshot eyes. The ghostly thing and Lin Yi fell silent. They bowed deeply to the 5-poison flood dragon at the same time. The ghostly thing then sighed and said, "Fine. Since your master had such a wish, you should work hard in this direction. Don't let it wait too long. That bastard, the vermilion bird, won't be able to be arrogant for long. I promise." "I know. One day, I will use the vermilion bird's corpse as a sacrifice to my master's spirit in heaven." The 5 evils dragon took a deep breath and said with determination. At this point, the vermilion bird was already an opponent that the 5 venoms dragon had to kill, whether it was for the 5 venoms dragon or for itself. However, this opponent was too strong and too scary. Even though the 5 evils dragon was at the earth opening stage, it could only hide here like a tortoise. Only when it was strong enough would the 5 evils dragon be born and make the vermilion bird pay the price of blood. Lin Yi stood to the side and didn't say anything. He didn't have any grudges with the vermilion bird, but if he had enough strength, he would definitely make a move against the vermilion bird. After all, regardless of whether it was that ghostly being or the 5 malevolent dragons, they would not rest until the vermilion bird was dead. The group stayed at the 5-poison flood dragon's graveyard for a while before taking off again. With the speed of the spirit bird, they flew at full speed for over an hour. After that, Lin Yi finally caught up with the 5 evils dragon. This place was very far from the 5-poison swamp, but even so, Lin Yi couldn't find the end of this mysterious space. The vastness of this mysterious space was really incredible. If I'm not wrong, this should be the 3rd exit. "Up there should be the 3rd exit," said the 5 fiends dragon as it pointed above. Lin Yi heard this and looked up. The scene was the same as before. It was still filled with the 5 elemental killing chi. He couldn't see anything different. However, this wasn't strange. Even at the original place, Lin Yi couldn't see through the 5 elemental killing chi to see the 5-poison swamp. If he wanted to know what was above, he would have to go up there. "Above, where is this?" Lin Yi couldn't help but ask. Finally, he found a possible exit. At this moment, he couldn't help but want to give it a try. "I don't know. Master didn't let me go up. Even he himself hasn't been there before. The only reason he knew about this place was because of the message left behind by the previous generation's flood dragon. No matter what, one thing is for sure. So, whether or not you want to leave this place, you really have to think carefully." The 5 evils dragon spoke in a serious tone. There was definitely danger. Otherwise, the 5-poison flood dragon wouldn't have warned the 5 evils. With their strength, they had to be so careful. If Lin Yi was only at the peak of the early stage of the original soul stage, then the danger would be unimaginable. The West Mountain sect was very dangerous, and so was the Spirit Beast clan. However, the unknown place above might be even more dangerous than the previous two combined. If that was the case, Lenny wouldn't be able to cry even if he wanted to. Lenny gritted his teeth and turned his head to look at the ghostly thing floating beside him. He wasn't willing to give up just like this. He knew that this place was dangerous, but compared to the other two exits, there was at least a chance of survival. After all, if he went through the other two exits, there was a 99% chance that he would either die on the spot or be forced back. The one in front of him was more or less enough for him to imagine. According to the distance and direction I flew from just now, I can roughly judge the situation above. No wonder the 5 poison flood dragon didn't let the 5 evils boy go up from here. If it was me, I would do the same. The ghostly thing's tone was a bit complicated. Although the 5 evils dragon was the owner of this space in name, it didn't know the situation above at all. On the contrary, the ghostly thing knew it like the back of its hand. After all, the South Continent used to be its base camp. The entire map of the South Continent was in its head. As long as it knew the direction, it would naturally be able to find the corresponding position on the map. Hearing the ghostly thing's tone, Lenny couldn't help but feel nervous. He hurriedly asked, "Above is endless sea." The ghostly thing slowly spat out these 4 words. Sea. Lenny was stunned when he heard it. He thought it was somewhere like the core hinterland of the South Island. He even thought it might be the territory of a super spirit beast like the vermilion bird. He didn't expect such an answer. Even the 5 evils dragon next to him was a bit stunned. Since it was teleported here, it had never taken a step out. The 5 poison flood dragon didn't tell it much about these things, so it could be said that it knew nothing about the sea on the Heaven Stage Island. I can't be wrong. According to the location, it's definitely not land above. It's the endless sea above, and it's some distance from the South Island. The ghostly thing said with certainty. Chapter 4581. Stupid. Have you forgotten the sea beasts in the sea? They are existences that even our spirit beasts dare not provoke. The ghost smiled bitterly. Ah, then what should I do? Only then did Lenny realize that the sea beasts and the spirit beasts were very different, and most of the sea beasts would stay away from the South Island. He subconsciously threw this dangerous factor to the back of his mind and broke out in a cold sweat. When he was chased by the West Mountain Old Sect for the first time, Lenny had encountered an extremely terrifying sea beast like the Ghost Ray. It was very close to the island, and its strength was already frightening. Now that he was far away from the South Island, once he encountered a sea beast, its strength would be much stronger. If he was unlucky, he would really die. The sea beasts are indeed terrifying, but it depends purely on luck. As long as your luck is a little bit better, you will always have a little hope of leaving alive. If it is the other 2 exits, to be honest, there is no hope at all. Whether you want to take the risk or not, it depends on you, kid. The ghost pondered for a moment and said, "Senior, you are right. In this case, let's go up from here. A living person can't be suffocated to death." Lenny gritted his teeth and made up his mind. Wealth came from danger. Many times, people were forced to do nothing and could only bite the bullet and fight for their lives. In fact, to be honest, although the endless sea was full of danger, Lenny did not intend to explore the sea after all. As long as he went out, he would immediately let the spirit bird rush out of the sea at the fastest speed. The process would be extremely short, and the possibility of encountering a super strong sea beast was not very high. Once he successfully rushed out of the sea, he would be free to fly in the sky. For Lenny's decision, the ghost was not surprised at all. "Do you really want to go from here? Then be careful. It sounds a little dangerous." The dragon of 5 evils reminded him. Although it had never encountered sea beasts, even the ghost, the former azure dragon, was so serious. That meant that it was indeed not simple. Maybe with its current strength of earth-opening realm, it would be in danger, let alone Lin-E, who was only at the peak of nascent soul realm. Lenny nodded and said, "Don't worry. Thank you for your help during this period of time. I'll say goodbye to you now." See you later. I believe I'll come to the South Island to find you soon. After all, there was a ghostly thing here. When he had enough strength in the future, he would definitely accompany the ghostly thing to set foot on the South Island again. When that time came, the vermilion bird wouldn't be far away from its demise. All right, I'll wait for you here. Take care. The Five Evils dragon nodded heavily. After spending more than 3 months together, it had already regarded Lin Yi as a true old friend. Not to mention that the ghost was also a senior dragon that it respected. If it wasn't for the fact that it couldn't disobey its master's order, it even had the intention to go out with Lin Yi. It was a pity that the Dragon of Five Evils was carrying a blood feud. Before its death, the Five Poisons Flood Dragon had specially told it to stay here and endure hardships. Before it was strong enough to fight against the Vermilion Bird, it must not leave this underground space at all, lest it would be killed. After saying goodbye to the Dragon of Five Evils, Lin Yi took a deep breath. Then he jumped on the back of the spirit bird, wrapped himself and the spirit bird with genuine chi, and suddenly soared into the sky. His figure quickly disappeared in the murderous aura of the 5 elements above. In the beginning, it was the same as what he had seen before. The murderous aura of the 5 elements was everywhere. It went from weak to strong, and after passing the middle level, it gradually became weaker. Not only did the pressure obviously become weaker, not only was the pressure obviously weaker, but the number was also decreasing rapidly. After rising for about half an hour, Lin Yi found that the murderous aura of the 5 elements around him had completely disappeared. At this moment, what appeared above his head was a cave entrance. Lin Yi had thought that this exit would be as vast as the 5 Poison Swamp, but he didn't expect that this cave entrance would be much smaller than he had expected. It was only a few feet in radius. He and the spirit bird could go in and out freely. If it were the size of the Dragon of 5 Evils, it would be a little difficult. If it were a bigger existence, it would be impossible to go in and out of here, unless the cave entrance was destroyed or a human figure was transformed. Looking into the cave entrance, it was pitch black inside, and the naked eye couldn't see the situation inside at all. He could only vaguely hear the rumbling sound of water, which must be very rapid. There's a whirlpool passage above, but as for what's on the other side of the passage, it depends on luck, the ghost said after sensing it with his divine awareness. It won't be like the whirlpool passage I saw before, which leads directly to the hinterland of the South Island, will it? Lin Yi suddenly had a bad feeling. He had been mentally prepared to face the endless sea, but if it led him to the hinterland of the South Island, it would be really funny. It's hard to say. Although I've specially studied these whirlpool passages near the South Island, it's only a small part of them. I've never even heard of a whirlpool passage in such a place before. Who knows where it leads to? It's all about luck. To be honest, it's not too late for you to regret now. The ghost's tone was a little cautious, which was rare. There's no turning back. Since I've come here, how can I go back? Even if there's a mountain of knives and a sea of fire in front of me, I have to brace myself and have a try. If I don't even have the courage, I won't be able to get out of here for the rest of my life. Lin Yi's determination was far greater than the ghost's expectation. Instead of being timid, he would rather go all the way. After saying that, Lin Yi did not hesitate for too long. After adjusting his state a little, he immediately ordered the spirit bird to dive into the whirlpool passage. The water in this whirlpool passage was extremely strong. If Lin Yi hadn't protected his body with true chi, the water might have torn him and the spirit bird into pieces. If Lin Yi's strength was still at the middle stage of gold core, he might not be able to bear it. But now he was at the peak of the early stage of Yuanying realm. The stronger the current, the faster the speed. After half an incense's time, Lin Yi and the spirit bird suddenly felt the air beneath them, and both of them were flung out. They struggled for a long time before they finally managed to stabilize themselves. It was so dark that they couldn't see their fingers, but Lin Yi was relieved when he saw this. From the strong water pressure in all directions, he could feel that they were in the depths of the sea. Although it was also dangerous, it was much better than being taken to the hinterland of the South Island. As long as they could get to the surface, Everything would be fine, and they wouldn't have to worry about anything. Chapter 4582. However, Linny had his true chi to protect his body, so the seawater could not get close to him at all. Moreover, whether it was him or the spirit bird, although they could not breathe freely in the water like the sea beasts, they were still at the nascent soul stage after all. This kind of small matter could not stop them at all. As for the darkness of this place, it was not a big problem for Lin Yi. In the 5-poison swamp, he could not easily use his divine sense, but in this place, there was no such restriction. Even if the seawater still had a lot of barriers to divine sense, for Lin Yi, who was used to the high-pressure isolation of the 5-poison swamp, this barrier was nothing. Since he could sense it with his divine sense, it did not matter if he could not see it with his naked eyes. However, for some reason, after such a long time, when he reused his divine sense, Linny suddenly found that the strength of his divine sense was at least several times stronger than before, whether it was the sensing range or the clarity. Suddenly discovering this unexpected surprise, even Lin Yi could not help but be a little stunned. This feeling was like a dream, and he could not react for a long time. Although his strength was no longer the same as when he first entered the 5-poison swamp, Lin Yi had never specially cultivated his divine sense. Firstly, he had not reached that level. Secondly, under the pressure of the 5 elements' murderous chi, he could not even use his divine sense. Even if he wanted to cultivate, he was powerless. Who would have thought that unknowingly, his divine sense would soar so much? However, after Lin Yi was stunned for a moment, he finally came up with a reasonable explanation. Could it be that after breaking through to the nascent soul stage, the divine sense will naturally soar? Bullshit. The ghost tried hard not to curse out loud. Unlike the physical strength that could be quickly improved by taking elixirs, there was never a time for the divine sense to be reaped without effort. It could only rely on one's own continuous cultivation step by step, and continuous understanding. Otherwise, let alone a nascent soul stage master, even a higher-level master of the profound ascending stage, the strength of the divine sense would absolutely be absolutely weak. Lin Yi completely did not know how lucky he was. Advancing to the nascent soul stage would allow one's divine sense to skyrocket? How could there be such a good thing in the world? Why did Lin Yi's divine sense suddenly soar? He didn't know, but as a bystander, the ghost knew it very clearly. It was clearly because of the inexplicable awakening of his divine sense, when he discovered the 5 evils dragon. Such a rare opportunity had been encountered by this boy. If the strength of his divine sense did not soar, then it would really be unreasonable. However, although the ghost knew the reason, it could not tell Lin Yi, because the process of divine sense awakening was very mysterious. It was a state of unconscious epiphany. As long as the ghost didn't say anything, Lin Yi would still have the opportunity to enter this state in the future. However, if Lin Yi himself knew about it, he would definitely lean towards this direction after tasting the sweetness. That would be counterproductive. The ghost was silent. Lin Yi thought that he had guessed correctly, and regarded the skyrocketing of the divine sense as a normal situation. He did not think too much about it. He just used his divine sense to perceive everything around him. What he needed to care most now was not how his divine sense was, but whether there were sea beasts around. However, before Lin Yi's divine sense was fully released, his heart was suddenly shocked without warning. An overwhelming pressure instantly forced his divine sense back into his body. Under the violent backlash, Lin Yi suddenly spat out a big mouthful of blood. Lin Yi's face changed in an instant. He had a bad feeling before, but he did not expect that the premonition would come true. There was really a terrifying super-existence in this place. Just the pressure alone could make his divine sense suffer such a backlash. Even the 5 evils dragon at the earth opening stage could not do this. A horrifying thought suddenly flashed through Lin Yi's mind. If it was stronger than the 5 evils dragon, wouldn't it be at least the existence of the sea-splitting stage? This endless sea was really unfathomable. Lin Yi was really full of bitterness at this moment. If he had known that he would suddenly encounter a super sea beast at the sea-splitting stage, he would have directly left the Five Poisons swamp. Facing the West Mountain Old Sect, at least he would have a chance to survive. Now that he was facing a sea beast at the sea-splitting stage, he did not even dare to move. It wasn't just Lin Yi. The ghost thing was shocked as well, but it took a while for it to react before letting out a sigh of relief. What a strong sea beast, its soul is still intact even after death. It's almost as strong as me. Lin Yi's eyes widened as he looked at Lin Yi. What a strong sea beast, its soul is still intact even after death. It's almost as strong as me. Dead. This is the soul essence left behind after its death? Lin Yi heard this and suddenly became happy. No wonder it gave him the same feeling as the Five Poison Flood Dragon graveyard. The only difference was that this pressure was stronger and more aggressive. Well, this soul essence is on the verge of collapse, and will soon completely dissipate. In contrast, I am much luckier. It is only the last bit of obsession that has not dissipated. It has long lost its thoughts and consciousness. The ghost could not help but sigh. This scene made him feel the same. After all, he was like this in the secular world. If he did not meet Lin Yi, he might also be left with a bit of unconscious obsession. One must know that the environment in the secular world was much worse than here. Soul essence would only die faster and more thoroughly. Obsession. Lin Yi could not help but be a little speechless. If the opponent was a complete soul essence, then it was not difficult to understand why a peak early nascent soul master like him would be in such a state. But this was only a bit of remnant obsession. What was this? Yes, it's the last bit of obsession left behind before the primordial spirit disperses. When one's strength reaches a certain level, a random thought can exist independently in the world. Even if the physical body is destroyed, the primordial spirit will continue to exist, just like this sea beast in front of us. In fact, the Five Poisons Flood Dragon was the same, but it entrusted everything to the five evils, so its obsession was not as strong as this one, explained the ghostly thing. The last bit of remnant obsession can be so powerful? This is really unimaginable. Lin Yi suddenly felt that his horizons had been broadened. He was now at the peak early nascent soul, but according to the ghost, he had not even reached the threshold to systematically cultivate his divine sense. It was really a long time before he could reach such a terrifying realm, where a thought could not be destroyed. Chapter 4583. Okay. Lin Yi nodded and immediately led the spiritual bird towards the remnant consciousness. Because of the existence of this terrible obsession, other sea beasts would hide far away. So, as the ghost said, this place would not be dangerous. As he got closer and closer to the remnant consciousness, Lin Yi felt murderous aura constantly surging towards him from all directions. Each aura was fiercer and fiercer than the one before, making people feel extremely depressed and creeped out. Gradually, Lin Yi finally came to the spatial source of the obsession. There was a faint layer of light in this place. Even without divine sense, he could easily see the surrounding scene. He couldn't help but exclaim, "What a terrible battlefield!" There was no doubt that there was a battlefield in front of them. Traces of an incomparably brutal battle could be seen everywhere. However, this was not a battle between human cultivators. Human cultivators would never come here to fight. This was an earth-shattering battle between two extremely powerful super beast clans. As far as Lin Yi could see, it was full of neatly broken reefs, dead corals, and the most conspicuous thing was the eerie white bones of the sea beasts. This was a huge graveyard of sea beasts. After a moment of shock, Lin Yi quickly found the source of the lingering will. It came from an extremely large corpse. Judging from the surroundings, this battle should have happened a long time ago. But the corpse in front of him didn't seem to be rotting at all. If even a random will could exist on its own, then it wasn't strange that the corpse didn't rot or decay. Looking at the huge and even spectacular corpse in front of him, Lin Yi could not help but feel a sense of admiration from the bottom of his heart. Whether it was humans or beasts, it was an innate instinct for all creatures to admire the top existences. Lin Yi didn't know what kind of sea beast it was. Its body was as big as a mountain, and it looked like a giant electric eel at first glance. But upon closer inspection, it didn't look like it. whether it was the exposed fangs or not, whether it was the ferocious fangs exposed, or the dense and ferocious scales that were like giant knives. They constantly declared the horror and ferocity of its life. This corpse was definitely a rare treasure in the world. This was Lin Yi's first reaction. As the saying goes, every part of a spirit beast's body is a treasure. The more powerful the spirit beast, the higher the value of every part of its body. Naturally, the same principle applies to sea beasts. The corpse of a nascent soul stage spirit beast can be sold for a shockingly high price. And this giant electric eel-like sea beast in front of him is at least at the sea-splitting stage, or even stronger. What price would it fetch if it were to be sold? Lin Yi no longer had any desire for spiritual jades. But when he thought of the scene that would make everyone go wild for it, even he couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. Moreover, even if he didn't auction it off, this corpse would definitely be of boundless use. Perhaps it wouldn't be of use for now, but it would definitely be of great use in the future. Thinking of this, Lin Yi couldn't help but move forward to put the corpse into the space of the jade pendant. Although the other party was huge, Lin Yi had the mentality of taking as many as he could. If he really couldn't fit them all, he could just dismember them on the spot. He couldn't just leave with a pile of ready-made treasures in front of him empty-handed. That was a wastrel. However, Lin Yi suddenly frowned. He found that no matter how he tried to control the huge corpse in front of him, it didn't move at all. He couldn't put it into the space of the jade pendant at all. You'd better save it. The ghostly thing finally couldn't stand it anymore. It laughed cruelly and said, although this guy has been dead for who knows how many years, it still has remnants of its obsession. You can't put it in at all. Unless you can crush this obsession, that's more like it. Lin Yi suddenly felt like a bucket of cold water was poured over his head. Only then did he realize that since there were remnants of the obsession in the other party's body, it was equivalent to a living thing. Either it wholeheartedly surrendered to him, or it was like the ghostly thing said to destroy this obsession. Otherwise, it would be impossible to put it into the space of the jade pendant. But the problem was that the other party was at least a super existence at the sea-splitting stage. Honestly speaking, Lin Yi didn't even have the qualifications to worship it in person. Even if it was just a remnant obsession, it could easily cause him to vomit blood. With Lin Yi's current strength, it was simply a fool's dream to want to destroy this obsession, looking at such a huge treasure, but being helpless because of his lack of strength. This feeling was really depressing. Lin Yi shook his head helplessly, but still reached out to touch the corpse. Even if he couldn't put the whole thing into the space of the jade pendant, he could at least break off something. After all, even if it was just a piece of scale on the other party's body, it must be a treasure that was hard to find in the world. However, the moment his hand touched the scale, Lin Yi's whole body suddenly quivered, and then he couldn't move. On the surface, there was no special difference, but at this moment, his brain seemed to explode. He only felt that countless complex information was stuffed into his brain. Scenes flashed quickly, dazzling him and making him dizzy. With a splitting headache, Lin Yi was shocked and quickly wanted to take his hand back, but he found that the corpse seemed to have a magic power that firmly sucked his hand. Lin Yi couldn't move at all. And at this moment, the scenes that were reflected in his mind finally became clear, evolving into a complete memory fragment, as if it was another real existence, making people unconsciously immersed in it. It was still this unfathomable seabed. This super sea beast that looked like a giant electric eel was silent, quietly lurking in the deep gully sand, and a few miles in front of it was a fresh sea beast corpse. It seemed to be a powerful existence at the sea overlord level, but its stomach was split open, and around the wound was a scorched black. Its internal organs and blood kept flowing out, attracting all the sea beasts from all directions. This was a rare underwater feast. The sea beasts that were attracted were all fierce and ferocious, but they had no intention of attacking each other. Instead, they eagerly pounced on the huge sea beast's corpse. They didn't need to fight. The sea beast's corpse was already enough for them to fill their stomachs. Of course, if it wasn't enough after eating, then a bloody battle was inevitable. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.